American Revolution.
My grandmother was in touch with her white relatives. Of course, this was whispered about.
It says 51% African, 40% European. I'm stunned.
Finding your roots.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. Welcome to Finding Your Roots, a journey into the ancestral pasts of some of America's most fascinating figures. In this program, our guests include the actor Samuel L. Jackson, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, and the president of Brown University, Ruth Simmons.
There's a certain longing to know where you came from, because I've lived all my life without it.
Ruth, Condoleezza, and Sam's quest for their lost roots are remarkably similar.
In America, we have trouble talking about what really happened during slavery.
All three have long heard rumors that at least one white man, a slave owner, fathered one of their enslaved ancestors.
I look at my skin tones, I know that there are white people in my family somewhere.
The story in the family was that my grandmother was in touch with her white relatives in Grapeland. Of course, this was whispered about.
But they never had any way to establish the truth about these suspicions until now. You are looking at your third great-grandfather.
Wow, get out of here.
Ruth, meet your cousin.
I don't see the resemblance, but it must be there.
We poured through records from the slave era.
Julia, 4 years old, $450. My great-grandmother was worth $450.
And when the paper trail ran out, we turned to DNA analysis to look for genetic links that might connect these rumored white ancestors to each of our African-American guests. Then we searched for clues about their slave ancestors' origins back in Africa. That means your Kunta Kinte ancestor came from right there.
Wow, I'll be going home.
Could you read what it says?
I'm stunned. It says 51% African, 40% European, and 9% Asian.
We compiled our discoveries into a book of life for each guest. Would you please turn the page?
I'm almost afraid to.
A record of all that we had learned.
You ever in your wildest dreams think you might have a Revolutionary War ancestor?
Well, I was asking you when I came in here, did I get off the Nina, the Pinta, and Santa Maria, so.
Getting close?
Getting close.
Getting close.
Getting close.
Slavery stripped Sam, Condi, and Ruth of the knowledge of their deep family roots. And tonight, we're going to piece that knowledge back together again, using clues hidden in plain sight, clues written in their DNA. I have much in common with Sam, Condoleezza, and Ruth. Each of us was born into the segregated world of Jim Crow, not far from the land where our ancestors were once enslaved. This is my home, Piedmont, West Virginia. And these are my people, my friends and family. Out of Piedmont's 2,000 residents in 1950, about 300 were black, and we all lived in 3 segregated neighborhoods. The color of our skin set strict limits on where we could live and go to school, where we could work, and with whom we could socialize. But it also bonded us together, culturally, in innumerable ways. We created complex and nurturing communities that helped us to survive the stifling inequities of racial discrimination. Segregation could impose many limits, but it couldn't completely crush all of our dreams.
called them and said, okay, you've been trying to get me to come back to Broadway, here's your check.
Samuel L. Jackson grew up under Jim Crow, just like I did, and he's risen to the pinnacle of his profession. He's that rare actor who garners big box office numbers and critical respect.
Is that right? That is good.
Especially for his complex character studies in films such as Jungle Fever and Pulp Fiction.
It's not a bad thing to say, okay, this is what he did, this is what he didn't do.
I caught up with Sam backstage at his first Broadway show, The Mountaintop, in which he plays the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I would find it intimidating myself to play King.
Really?
Yeah, just because he's such a larger-than-life guy.
Well, that King, yeah, you would find difficulty playing, but, you know, we come into a motel room, we close the door, he slumps his shoulders, he takes his coat off. Whole nother cat.
Yeah.
Sam's connection to Dr. King is more than artistic. In 1968, as a freshman at Morehouse College, King's alma mater, in Atlanta, Sam was given the honor of serving as an usher at Dr. King's funeral. Radicalized by the assassination, Sam joined the Black Power movement. He still carries some of that righteous anger into his most electrifying work on screen.
Did you think you'd grow up to be an actor?
No, that wasn't an option. But the one thing that I had decided by this age was that I was not going to spend my life in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The world held a lot of interest and mystery for me, and I was going to get out there and get some of that.
Sam left Chattanooga to attend Morehouse College. But his 18 years growing up there fundamentally shaped the person he's become today.
What was Chattanooga like in the 50s?
You know, quiet southern town, extremely segregated. You know, there were still white-only signs, and when the county fair came to town every year, there was one day that was the black day.
Right. That
we could go to the fair, and that was on Friday.
Was there a moment when racism first hit you upside your head in Chattanooga when you were growing up?
No, it was always there.
The color line was clearly drawn. Even in Sam's neighborhood in downtown Chattanooga, which was a patchwork of black families and a few poor white ones.
There was a little bitty kid across the street, and if he saw me and my grandmother, he would say, "Hey, nigger lady," or "Hi, nigger boy," and, you know, I'd be ready to hit him, and my grandmother would leave him alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, some white kids drove by on the bus, and they threw rocks out the window or threw light bulbs at us on their way to school. So I had a very good idea of what our place was.
Family was the first line of defense against the sting of segregation. For Sam, that meant his mother and grandparents. His father had abandoned his family before Sam could walk.
I didn't have a sense of not having a father because I had my grandfather there in the house, who was my best friend, and he'd tell me stories. Or we'd listen to the radio. We'd listen to radio dramas.
Oh, you would?
Yeah. He bought me my first knife.
Yeah.
We could carve together. But the fact that I had a knife and he had one was like so cool to me.
To Sam, his grandfather was larger than life. But to most of white Chattanooga, he was probably just another Negro janitor pushing a broom.
I'd been going to work with him since I was 1 or 2 years old. You know, he held my hand and I walked to work with him.
Yeah.
And those white people my grandfather worked for, they were always Mr. So-and-so and so, and he was twice their age and they were still calling him Ed. I mean, being called boy, boy, boy. And my grandfather was a boy. He's 60 years old and he was still a boy.
Thrown back on themselves, the black community in Chattanooga turned to each other for strength and support.
The black community was a very tight-knit community. I didn't feel like I was being deprived of anything because everybody took such great care of us. When people start talking about segregation, they always think about, oh, it must have been so hard. It's like, no, that was what it was.
In some ways, because it was so segregated, racism was both everything and nothing at all.
Like Sam, Condoleezza Rice rose from the segregated South to stratospheric heights. Forbes magazine once called her the most powerful woman in the world.
Do you think we can make eye contact when we start that?
Yes.
Okay, so just to establish that we're here now and now we're playing, right? Yeah, exactly.
She is a classical pianist. She was the provost of Stanford University, where she still is a professor. She was both the first female African-American national security advisor and Secretary of State.
Mr. President, thank you again for this great opportunity and for your continued confidence in me.
Condoleezza is one of the most recognized public figures in America. But she's keenly aware that her life is just a small part of a much larger story.
Is that good?
I guess that people find interesting or fascinating the unbelievable journey of somebody who came from slaves and from segregated Birmingham, Alabama, to be Secretary of State. But that's not me, that's our history.
Condoleezza's journey began back in the 1950s in Birmingham, Alabama, in the black middle-class neighborhood of Titusville. Dr. King called Birmingham the most segregated city in America. As civil rights activists challenged the status quo, white terrorists responded with a wave of violence that earned Condoleezza's hometown the nickname of Bombingham.
Were you aware that this hostile environment was out there?
Occasionally, you were aware of it. Our parents did everything they could to shield us from it. And because you went to schools that were completely segregated, your classmates were black, your teachers were black, you didn't actually have to encounter the white community that often.
The most infamous attack was the bombing in September 1963 of the 16th Street Baptist Church, which killed 4 young black girls. At nearby Westminster Presbyterian Church, 9-year-old Condoleezza was getting ready for her own services when she felt the ground rumble from the explosion.
We'd just gotten to church because my dad was the preacher, so we were there a little early. And I remember the thud and the feeling of something shaking because we were only about 2 miles, as the crow flies, from 16th Street Baptist Church. And every person in Black Birmingham knew one of those little girls. The community wasn't that big. That night, I asked my parents if I could sleep in their bed. That was pretty scary.
How did you deal with that trauma?
People keep going. Children keep going.
In the face of this violence, black families in Titusville pulled together.
We were a little cocoon within Birmingham. A very loving and kind and nurturing place. And so I think it was a place that gave me a lot of confidence. High standards in terms of education, all of our own lessons, piano, ballet, French, etiquette lessons.
So this was the creme de la creme brulee. Did your parents tell you that you could be whatever you wanted to be?
Absolutely. You might not be able to have a hamburger at the Woolworth's lunch counter in segregated Birmingham, but you could be President of the United States.
Even President of the United States?
Even President of the United States.
It's a campaign stop.
Oh.
Yeah, fundraiser.
Ruth Simmons didn't grow up to be President of the United States, but she did grow up to be the first African-American president of an Ivy League university.
I would not have thought it possible for a person of my background to become president of Brown University.
The youngest of 12 children, Ruth was born into extreme poverty in 1940s Grapeland, Texas. Nevertheless, she rose to become the leader of one of our finest educational institutions.
You know, every day I go to work and I face the painting of the first president of Brown, a slaveholder. And I think the power in the fact that I faced the slaveholder as a descendant of slaves is just as it ought to be. Because in that march of history, all these things happen.
Ruth grew up just a step removed from slavery, in a family of sharecroppers. This was the notorious system under which farmers picked cotton and lived on someone else's land in return for a share of the profits. But they had to pay such high charges for food, clothing, and rent that they often fell into a cycle of debt from which they could never escape. Almost every aspect of Ruth's childhood revolved around the cotton plantation where her family worked and lived.
And there were hundreds of families living on it. It was that vast.
Village within the villages.
A village within a village. And it was a really hard scrabble life. And when I think about it now, do you know what my sisters and brothers and I took for lunch when we went to school?
What?
A bucket with syrup, a biscuit, and bacon grease in it. Every day. Most of my older siblings who were in Grapeland didn't finish school because they had to work in the cotton fields.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my goodness, I could not have had any aspiration other than to follow in the footsteps of my parents.
But in the early 1950s, new possibilities opened up for Ruth when her family joined the mass migration of African Americans who were moving from farm towns to industrial cities looking for work. For Ruth's family, that meant Houston's all-black Fifth Ward, and it was here that her lifelong passion for education took root.
That move to Houston changed my life because the city required us to go to school every day, and that sort of saved things for me.
I cannot believe that it was this far into the bush.
Ruth and her brothers, Clarence and Wilfred Stubblefield, wanted to take us back to Grapeland, to show us the farm where their family had once worked as sharecroppers.
Okay.
This is Ruth's first trip back since her childhood.
It was hard labor for adults, and naturally it was incredible labor for children to do. And yet, as soon as you were able, you were taken to the field and you were expected to be a contributor to the labor.
We would get up around 5:30, and we would either chop cotton or pick cotton for the duration of the day, and then we would come back home.
You had to have as many hands on deck as possible because you had to bring in as much of the crop as you could in order to make a subsistence living.
This farm was a self-contained colored world where Ruth's family almost never encountered white people. But on the rare occasion when they did go into Grapeland, they were forced strictly to follow the code of the Jim Crow South.
From my earliest days, I was aware that there were certain ways of behaving that were essential to surviving in that environment. Don't ever talk back to a white person, okay? If you're on the sidewalk and you meet a white person, step off the sidewalk and let them pass. So we had a long list of things that we dared not do for fear of what might happen to us, because violence against blacks in those days was commonplace. So we were in this vice.
All three of my guests grew up on one side of a public color line that was often policed with violence and intimidation. But the hidden history of Southern race relations suggests that the color line could be far more difficult to patrol in private. For Ruth Simmons, That story begins with her grandmother.
Your father's mother, Flossie Stubblefield, was born in Grapeland, Texas in 1883. Her maiden name was Beasley.
Yes. She was quite fair, which is not so clear on this picture, but she was fair. And the story in the family was that my grandmother was in touch with her white relatives in Grapeland. Of course, this was whispered about.
These were the white Beasleys.
Yes.
Ruth was too young to remember much about her grandmother, Flossie, but her older brothers told us something quite intriguing. At the height of Jim Crow, this white family, who shared their grandmother's maiden name, Beasley, would visit Flossie at the farm. We wanted to find out why.
They would come down and have dinner with us.
We always took for granted there was some crossing of the lines in our family because of the colors of our skin. Some of us are pretty much fair-skinned people, and we know something had to happen.
Like so many African Americans of our generation, Ruth, Sam, Condoleezza, and I all grew up hearing tales about a supposed white male ancestor hidden somewhere on a branch of our family trees deep in slavery times. In my own family, we were always told with grave certainty that my great-great-grandmother on my father's side, a woman named Jane Gates, bore children with a white man named Samuel Brady. The history of sexual relations between master and slave is written on our faces and in our features. But few African Americans have ever been able to establish the facts behind these stories. At the University of Memphis, Susan O'Donovan studies power dynamics under the institution of slavery.
It was a very coercive world in which power was incredibly inequitable, in which white men, whether they were overseers, strangers on the road, masters, brothers, whoever, had enormous power over enslaved women. And so there's endless opportunity for coerced sexual relationships.
Samuel Jackson told me that he had long heard rumors of a white ancestor on his mother's side. He knows that these mixed-race roots are a common legacy of slavery.
It's just part and parcel of what you expect if you're in the South and you're part of a Southern heritage. And I look at my skin tones, I know that there are white people in my family somewhere.
Obviously.
I don't have an issue with that. I know that. Somewhere in that woodpile.
Our search for clues led us to northern Georgia, where Sam's family on his mother's side has lived since the 1800s. Sam's first cousins, Emma and Hilda Finley, took us to the Mount Zion Cemetery. They showed us the graves of several generations of Sam's maternal ancestors, including the family's matriarch.
This is Grandma Lily. She used to be Lily Brown. Lily was Sam's great-great-grandmother.
There's a spot up here where
According to Arthur Finley, one of Sam's other cousins, Lily Branham had fair skin and was the granddaughter of a white man.
I just heard that her grandfather was a Judge Branham who was white. I knew he had to be white if he was a judge.
We found out that Lily's grandmother, Sam's great-great-great-grandmother, was an enslaved woman named Matilda. If the family story is true, then Matilda had a child with this mysterious Judge Branham. We headed to Putnam County, Georgia, where Matilda had been enslaved, to see if we could confirm this story. In the estate papers of local landowners, Putnam County historian Jim Marshall discovered a crucial record. The will of a white man named Henry Branham. It listed all of his slaves by name, including the one we were looking for.
A Negro woman, Matilda, and her 2 children.
Sam, the Branham family were the white people who owned your ancestors on this branch of your family tree.
Wow.
Henry Branham, who owned Sam's great-great-great-grandmother, Matilda, was a wealthy planter, the scion of a prominent local family. And he was a legislator. But it turns out that he was not a judge. With a little more research, we discovered that Henry Branham had a nephew named Joel Branham, Judge Joel Branham. Could this have been the elusive Judge Branham, who was rumored to have fathered Matilda's child? The town's geography itself held clues. We found that the shortest route from Joel Branham's home to his work led him right past a familiar address.
Judge Branham lived here and would walk downtown passing his uncle's home where Matilda, the slave woman, lived. And it was evidently in passing at some point that the rest of the story develops.
The circumstantial evidence confirming Sam's family story was beginning to mount when we discovered another intriguing piece of evidence. Jim Marshall found that a few months after Henry signed his will, he amended one part of it.
He says, sent my son, William C. Branham, a Negro woman, Matilda, and her 2 children.
Henry sent Matilda and her young sons away from his estate to be slaves on a relative's farm in the country. Could this have been an attempt to protect his nephew's secret?
It would be embarrassing possibly to have a mulatto child suddenly arrive and be part of the homestead. Whereas out in the county where there were plantations that had hundreds of slaves and there were probably many mulatto children, it would not have been as noticeable.
This trail of clues finally had brought us face to face with a man who was most likely Sam's white ancestor.
There he is, Judge Joel Branham.
Really? Wow.
Your family's oral history, and in all probability, you are looking at your 3rd great-grandfather.
Wow.
And if Joel Branham is Sam's ancestor, the former Black Power militant from Chattanooga, Tennessee, has far deeper roots in the white establishment than he probably ever could have imagined.
If indeed Judge Branham is your 3rd great-grandfather, you could be descended from a Revolutionary War soldier, the grandfather of Joel Branham.
Okay.
So Sam, if family stories are true, it means that you are eligible to be a member of the Sons of the American Revolution.
Get out of here.
You ever in your wildest dreams think you might have a Revolutionary War ancestor?
Well, I was asking you when I came in here, did I get off the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, so.
You're getting close?
I'm getting close.
Getting close.
Getting close.
Painstaking archival research can help us begin to solve family mysteries, but it can only go so far. In my own case, the paper trail couldn't bring me any closer to proving a link between my enslaved great-great-grandmother Jane and Samuel Brady, the white man my family always suspected was the father of her children. But now there's a tool that can take us back further than written records. I met up with Dr. George Church. George is a professor of genetics at Harvard University.
So saliva will do. We don't need blood. That's our impression.
We had tracked down a direct descendant of Samuel Brady, and I wanted to know how our genomes could reveal whether we shared this common ancestor.
George, what can DNA tell us about our ancestors beyond the written record?
Written records go back to the dawn of written history, and DNA goes back to the dawn of human existence.
Mm-hmm.
Each generation, you get a scrambling, you get a rearrangement of the DNA.
Mm-hmm. Because you get one half from your mother, one half from your father.
That's right. Basically, there's a half of the DNA from any generation.
That means that you inherit approximately a quarter of your genome from your grandparents and a 16th from your great-great-grandparents. So if two people do share a recent ancestor, they will also share long stretches of identical DNA. To answer the central mystery of my past, we compared my DNA with the DNA of the descendant of Samuel Brady. To my surprise, and I have to confess, to my disappointment, the test proved that Brady definitely was not my great-great-grandfather. But another test proved that whoever this man was, he was most probably of Irish or Scottish descent. Condoleezza Rice also has a rumor of a white patriarch at the heart of her family story, a story that revolves around the mysterious origins of her paternal great-grandmother, Julia Head.
Julia Head was a gigantic presence. Everybody told the story of her sitting on the back porch with a pipe. She smoked a corncob pipe, apparently, and she sit with her shotgun quite a lot. So she was a pretty tough lady.
Condoleezza told me that Julia Head was born a slave, but lived to see emancipation. As a free person, she learned to read, the first person in her family ever to do so.
She was my grandmother and obviously a figure of authority in my house. She was Dad's mother.
This is Condoleezza's uncle, Philip Rice, and her cousin, Connie. Philip is one of the oldest members of the Rice family and one of the last living relatives actually to have met Julia Head.
So, quite an elegant woman compared to many her age at that time.
And she looks very strong and very stern. That stern Rice culture.
Yeah.
If you're having fun, there's something
There's
wrong.
something wrong.
Julia, too, had an undeniable sign of mixed African and European ancestry, her light skin. Connie and Philip had heard details about Julia's past that might explain why she looked this way.
Your cousin had heard that Julia was the daughter of a white planter in Greene County, Alabama, a man named Burr Head.
Yeah.
Have you heard this story?
I've heard that story. I've heard that story.
The story goes that Burroughs had a daughter with one of his slaves, and this daughter was Julia Head. Shortly after her birth, Burroughs Head gave Julia as a gift to a relative on a neighboring farm where she lived as a slave. We went to the courthouse in Greene County, Alabama, to investigate. Genealogist Fraisine Taylor found the will of Burroughs' brother, William Head, who owned an adjoining farm.
This document I have in my hand is showing all of the personal property belonging to the estate of William Head, deceased. The slaves are listed by name.
There we found the proof we had been seeking.
Julia, 4 years old, $450. My great-grandmother was worth $450 to Mr. Head. Yeah. Dehumanization, just property. Just property. It makes me even sorrier that I didn't meet her. Because she was somebody that everybody talked about all the time. Her strength and that she lived to be 101 and all of that. But to think that she started out as somebody that people put a price on them, $450.
Julia was indeed owned by the brother of Burroughs Head. But could we prove that Burroughs was her father, as family legend claimed? Our researcher tracked down the great-granddaughter of Burroughs Head, and she agreed to give us a DNA sample. I asked geneticist Joanna Mountain to compare it with one from Condoleezza.
If they truly are third cousins, we can hope to see some matching DNA, a longer stretch of matching DNA.
Did we?
Well, here are the results. And chromosomes are all blue, meaning non-matching DNA. So we did not find any DNA evidence of that relationship.
When the brothers say DNA don't lie, that's what they're talking about.
I have to agree with that.
The Rice family had fingered the wrong white man. But this test result didn't mean there was no white ancestry in the family's past. We ran another DNA test for Condoleezza, an admixture test, which measures her percentage of African, European, and Native American ancestry. It revealed some fascinating information about Condoleezza's roots.
I'm stunned. It says 51% African, 40% European.
Meaning 40% of your genetic ancestry goes to Europe.
I know that it's a lot of European ancestry.
You definitely have lots of white ancestors. You have to assume that some of it, of course, came from the most traumatic and painful experiences of slavery.
I think that my female ancestors probably suffered a lot. And that I have to be very grateful that they survived it all. I've always thought that this is the kind of unhealed wound in America, that we have trouble talking about what really happened during slavery. We have trouble talking about the scars of that. That's the unspoken and the unfinished business of race in America.
Does a hidden history need to stay hidden? Or can the truth, in the words of the scripture, set us free?
I just want people to tell the truth. I want people to stand up in the public square and say, this is the way it was.
We suspected that the truth about Ruth Simmons' hidden history and answers about how her grandmother Flossie got her light skin might be buried in census records for her hometown of Grapeland, Texas. We traced Flossie's family back to the 1880 census, where we discovered an entry for her father, Ruth's great-grandfather, a former slave named Peter Beasley.
Peter Beasley, with a Z, age 34, male, mulatto.
Mulatto.
Huh.
Yeah, now we know why
Now we know why.
Flossie looked like Flossie looked.
Yeah.
So Peter was a mulatto, which means that he had white ancestors. But were they the white Beasleys, as Ruth's brothers had always heard? We went to the courthouse in Houston County, Texas, to search the 1860 slave schedule, which lists slaves by age and gender, but not by name. We examined the entries of all the white Beasleys to see if any owned slaves whose ages and genders would match Peter's. In the entry for a white man named Charles Beasley, we found this.
Age 15, male, black.
Our genealogists believe that this anonymous slave was your great-grandfather, Peter Beasley.
It's quite sobering, you know.
It is.
To never have known even my grandparents, and to be able to reach back and to touch beyond them is, you know, it's quite something.
So Charles Beasley owned Ruth's great-grandfather, Peter Beasley. But were these two men related by blood? We tracked down a direct descendant of Charles Beasley, his great-great-granddaughter, a lawyer in Dallas named Camber Heyman. Camber agreed to give us a DNA sample, and we compared her genome to Ruth's.
Genome-wide comparison between Ruth Simmons and Camber Heyman, DNA overlap of 25, Centimorgan's third or fourth cousin.
Would you please turn the page? Ruth, meet your cousin.
Hello, cousin. Wow. I don't see the resemblance, but it must be there somewhere.
It is buried in your genes.
Wow.
Now, the DNA does not tell us the exact generation, but you and Camber share an ancestor since 1800.
Okay.
We just don't know who did the deed. But the deed was done by Beasley.
By somebody.
I think you're the person we're waiting to meet.
I think so.
Ruth.
Hi, I'm Camber, Ruth. It's great to meet you.
Good to meet you.
I brought you something.
Oh.
An artist did this I think in the late 80s or early 90s, and he pulled one of his proofs so I could give this to you.
Thank you.
Isn't that neat?
Thank you. That's very nice. We were just in Darcy's.
Were you?
Yes.
When they approached you about giving the DNA, did you have any qualms about it?
No. Well, yes and no. I think it's wonderful to have that richness in the history, because I think that the people that actually started the cross, it meant something to them.
We're glad you did. And it's been interesting. And we are glad you did.
There's a lot to learn, a lot to think about. And, you know, this is just yet more to absorb.
The truth of our family's past, even if born in pain and humiliation, can help us understand the real story of who we are and how we got here.
There are those who believe that African Americans carry a chip on their shoulders, that we ought to get over slavery. You know, why is that still relevant today, they say? Just move on. How do you move on from who you are?
For African Americans, of course, family history is not only about identifying our ancestors in this country, it's also about tracing our roots to our slave ancestors' origins back in Africa.
How are you guys?
At Middle School 51 in Brooklyn, New York, a group of students is playing a little game.
Take an educated guess.
Each must guess where in Africa their ancestors came from. African Americans have long speculated about where on the vast African continent our ancestors originated. But this game is different.
So this is the moment that you are going to reconnect your family to a part of their ancestry that they don't know.
These students are part of the Continuum Project, a 9-week program that explores African American identity and uses DNA testing to look for genetic links across the Atlantic, deep into the past.
And into the envelope.
Rick, how'd you get the idea?
The key to piecing together that aspect of our lost history is this man, Dr. Rick Kittles.
Well, I really just wanted to know where I was from, you know. And
a pioneering geneticist and the founder of AfricanAncestry.com, Rick has spent his career trying to bridge the genealogical chasm of slavery.
How does the genetic science work?
We look at 2 genetic systems that are inherited from either the mother or the father. Those genetic systems, which is the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA, are passed on unchanged, meaning they're identical every generation. So the ancestor is no longer there, but there are people in the present-day population who share that genetic information from the ancestor.
Rick gathered a large database of DNA samples taken from living members of the ethnic groups most highly represented in the transatlantic slave trade. He can search this database to look for genetic matches between an African American and an African. And a match means that these 2 people are distant cousins.
Let's say that the match came back 100% Mende. That would mean that the sequence that we received from the African American was an identical sequence to a Mende individual in our database. There's a common ancestor there.
That means that if you share similar enough Y or mitochondrial DNA with a member of the Mende people today, then it's quite likely that your ancestor on this particular line had been a Mende before they were sold into slavery. I asked Rick to run DNA samples through his database from some of the other African American guests in the series to see what it would tell us about their origins across the Atlantic.
You heard of Sinkay and the Amistad?
Yes.
They were the Mende. And so are you.
That's amazing to me. Amazing to me.
Trying? Mindy?
The Mende people from Sierra Leone.
They were fighters?
And lovers.
Lovers.
And
well, I prefer being a lover than a fighter.
Can you read what it says? It says Gabon, Shake, and Kota. So I have to go find the Shake people. And you got it. I'm going.
Back in Brooklyn, the Continuum Project culminates in a special evening where friends and family gather to watch as the students learn for the first time about their genetic links to Africa.
Can I please have love? You share ancestry with the Fula people in Guinea-Bissau today. We've successfully sequenced your maternal DNA. You share ancestry with the Tikar people in Cameroon today. So we're actually related. High five. Miss Naomi, you share ancestry with the Yoruba people in Nigeria today.
I was curious. Would learning about their African ancestry change these students' sense of what it means to be an African American?
Did your ancestral DNA give you a legacy, do you think?
When people ask me where I'm from, all I can say is Brooklyn. But now I can honestly say I'm from the Yoruba tribe in Nigeria.
No, that's great. Eric, what do you think? Is this valuable or is this a waste of time?
I think that it's important to know where you're from because that's who you are.
You are your ancestors.
Yeah. It's one thing to say that you're Black or you're African American, but to actually know your African ancestry, instead of being distant from them, you feel like you're connected.
All of a sudden a bridge was built.
Yes.
Instead of a barrier.
Yeah, I want to go and visit and stay for a while so I can meet the people and like experience their culture because it's my culture now.
1, 2, 3.
300 years after our ancestors were shipped to the United States, we can finally point to a spot where this family journey most likely began, at least for 2 lines of our ancestors. But it's not always the spot on the globe that we might expect.
Did you hear any rumors in your family that you had any Native American ancestry?
Yes,
Okay,
but very unspecific.
unspecific.
Yeah.
Every African American for each of my series has claimed to have a great grandmother with high cheekbones and straight black hair. Well, look at Africa, Ruth. What do you see in Africa?
I see nothing.
Africa is a big blank continent on this map. What this means is that you are the only person whom we've tested who actually descends from a Native American female.
Wow, that's very powerful.
You actually, the only Black person I know whose great-great-great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess.
So Ruth's mother's line, surprisingly, has been firmly rooted in the Americas for thousands of years. But for Sam and Condoleezza, their DNA results led us back to the motherland.
You share maternal genetic ancestry with the Tikar people in Cameroon.
Very interesting. I had thought that it might be to Ghana. because the Ghanaians thought that sort of facially I looked like maybe I'd been some mixture of Ashanti and European.
That was about the time Ghana applied for $1 billion loan from George Bush, wasn't it?
You think it may have been part of the story, right?
They were doing their own genealogy. Look like Ashanti to me.
It makes me want to go to Cameroon, meet my people. Yes.
You share ancestry with the Benga people in the modern country of Gabon. That means your Kunta Kinte ancestor came from right there.
Wow, get out of here. I have to Google Gabon immediately and see what's there.
For Ruth, we had one last hope for finding a link to Africa. Her father's line.
Gabon.
Gabon. The Kota people in Gabon.
Wow.
Your brother's Y-DNA sequence is 100% identical as theirs.
Wow.
Have you ever been to Gabon?
I haven't. I'll be going now, I can tell you. Yeah. Wow. I'll be going home. There is a certain longing, you know, that you always have to know where you came from. And I've lived all my life without it. So I think it's pretty wonderful.
We've come to the end of the family sagas of Samuel L. Jackson, Condoleezza Rice, and Ruth Simmons. Join me next week for another journey into the lost past.
My father was brought up in that era when immigrants were kind of like second-class citizens.
There weren't a lot of people that looked like me. There weren't a lot of people who had names like ours.
Finding your roots.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. Welcome to Finding Your Roots, a journey into the ancestral pasts of some of America's most intriguing individuals. In this episode, we'll explore the family trees of three trailblazers in media and entertainment: CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta, actor and comedian Margaret Cho, and a woman so well known, her name has become a brand, Martha Stewart. All three are the children of first or second generation immigrants, an experience that has left them with many unanswered questions about who they are and where they come from.
It's such a terrible pain to kind of be cut off from your family and to be cut off from what really is your home.
Did they talk about, let me tell you how good it was in the old days in the old country?
No, I don't know a lot. And I'm sorry I don't. I wish I had been a little bit more inquisitive.
That is your family tree, my brother.
That is a big tree. Wow, look at this. This is probably one of the most valuable pieces of paper I'm gonna have in my life.
To find Sanjay, Margaret, and Martha's long-lost ancestors, we've used every tool at our disposal. We've enlisted genealogists from around the world, highly trained ancestral detectives, to follow the existing paper trail of their family histories. Once these records run out, geneticists turned to cutting-edge DNA analysis to take us even deeper into the past.
This, Sanjay, is your book of life.
I love that.
All our findings are compiled in a book of life,
Wow.
a unique record of our discoveries, which I'll share page by page with my guests.
Could you tell me who those people are?
Oh, yes, this is Grandpa Ruskowski.
Like so many of us, Sanjay, Margaret, and Martha haven't been able to piece together the full story of their pasts.
And no wonder. All three grew up literally straddling two worlds. The lives they built for themselves in America, and the lives their parents or their grandparents left behind.
Ladies and gentlemen, Margaret Cho!
Margaret Cho has built a successful stand-up career that spanned nearly 3 decades. She's developed a unique comedic voice based upon what she knows best, her personal history as the child of recent immigrants.
I'm the only member of my family to have been born in America. So my mother would always push me forward like, she's white!
Margaret has been doing improv comedy and stand-up since she was a teenager. By the age of 26, she was already starring in her own network television show, All American Girl.
I wanted to be a comedian very early in life, and I told my mother when I was 14 I was going to be a comedian, and she said, "Oh, maybe it's better if you just die."
Margaret's humor illuminates a universal immigrant experience, the restless, challenging search to find a place where you most belong.
When you were growing up, did you think of yourself as Korean or primarily as American?
Well, I'm definitely American born. I'm trying to recognize the Korean in myself, but often I don't.
Growing up as the child of immigrants, however, there can be constant reminders of your outsider status.
There weren't a lot of people that looked like me. There weren't a lot of people who had names like ours.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's chief medical correspondent and a practicing neurosurgeon, has covered health-related stories around the world.
This is where the missile actually hit.
From the war in Iraq, to floods in Pakistan, to the earthquake in Haiti.
Literally dozens of patients just lining the halls.
At CNN, Sanjay's stories reach millions of viewers. On the air, he's skilled at negotiating several quite different worlds. But in the world in which he grew up, the small town of Novi, Michigan, he often felt like an outsider.
There were very few immigrants, not to mention Indians, but immigrants in your community.
It's quite striking now to think about that, because when you're a kid, that's all you know. I mean, it's your entire framework of the world. And so being Indian was a very novel thing. It was really something unusual and not fun, I think. I think in some ways because you're different.
For children growing up in immigrant families, seeing your parents struggle with being different can be just as painful as if you experienced it yourself, as Martha Stewart remembers.
My father, I think, was brought up in that era when immigrants were kind of like second-class citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a little chip on his shoulder, I think.
Based on her public image, you might think Martha Stewart's ancestors came to America on the Mayflower. But the truth is, she's the child of second-generation Polish immigrants. As a young girl, she was keenly aware of her father feeling like an outsider.
He always complained about his bosses looking down on him because he was a Polak. I hated that. I thought it was terrible.
Which part?
But that he would even think of himself as a Polak.
Oh, right.
Instead of someone of Polish descent. You know, it was beneath him to think like that. He was way too smart, way too handsome, and he should have been so proud of that. I was proud that I was the granddaughter of immigrants. I was very proud that they were self-made Americans, as they were.
Martha has always been deeply curious about her Polish ancestry.
So many people, particularly first, second generation immigrants, don't want to know.
Oh.
They want to forget.
No, I want to remember. I'd like to see what they were like and see, what kind of life they lived, where they lived, how they lived. It'd be very interesting.
As the children or grandchildren of immigrants, it's natural that Martha, Sanjay, and Margaret wanted to fit in, to be like their American friends and neighbors. But growing up in America has cut them off from many of their family stories about where and how their ancestors lived. Can genealogy help reconnect them with their pasts? I begin with Margaret Cho, who was born on December 5th, 1968. Margaret's parents emigrated from Seoul, South Korea in 1964, settling in San Francisco. Margaret was given the traditional Korean name of Moran, which means peony. In America, however, that given name was the source of constant ridicule from her classmates.
I did not want to be American with a name like Moran, which sounds much like moron, which I really heard a lot of as a kid. And
I bet.
I may have been about 10 or something, and I thought, I need a white name. Like, I need an American name. Like, I need a name that people would somehow be able to say.
Margaret's parents struggled to build a life for themselves in their new home. Her father, Sung-Hoo Cho, had studied law back in Korea, but here he was forced to support his young family as a waiter and a janitor. Soon after Margaret's birth, the family was suddenly wrenched apart. Margaret's father, in the U.S. on a student visa, was deported for working illegally. He took Margaret, just 1 month old, with him back to Korea. Margaret's mother, Young Hee Chun, stayed behind in California.
That must have been just horrible. She was there, didn't even have her baby.
She didn't have my presence, and my dad was gone, and then she was like working. I think she was working in like a factory making keys, I think. And he's deported, and she was furious, and I think so angry and so upset and so sad.
A year later, with a lot of luck, Margaret's father made his way back to the United States, where the family was reunited. Growing up, Margaret wasn't very interested in school. Her real education began in the Castro district, the center of San Francisco's gay community. Here in 1977, Margaret's parents opened a bookstore called Paperback Traffic.
This store was central to kind of a new breed of person who was like getting tattooed and pierced and like really, really different. Like not just a gay bookstore, but really kind of an alternative culture that was emerging. You know, I learned from the people there. It affected me forever. You know, that it sort of set me up for life, I think.
So because I am one of the more prominent Asian Americans, people like to come to me whenever they have an Asian problem. Like when they can't finish their Sudoku.
Margaret would develop her unique comedic voice in this creatively fertile environment, which both nurtured and celebrated difference.
Or if they need some kind of alteration.
This perpetual outsider was on her way to building a phenomenally successful career. Like Margaret, Sanjay Gupta also felt he was on the outside, looking in. Sanjay was born on October 23, 1969. His parents had both immigrated in 1966, settling in Novi, Michigan, to pursue careers in engineering. Sanjay recalls that he and his family were among the only people from India in this homogeneous town. Did you ever want to change your name?
I did. I wanted to change my name.
To what?
Well, I wanted to change my name to Steve.
Steve? Okay.
I know,
Steve Gupta.
Steve Gupta, right. You know, and I wish now it sounds silly, but I came pretty close, Skip, to doing this. We weren't allowed to watch really any television when I was growing up. I was allowed to watch one show a week, and the show that I enjoyed watching was The $6 Million Man, whose main character was Steve Austin. So this was the answer. There was some desire for normalcy and thinking that would be one way to get it.
Sanjay battled his sense of loneliness and isolation by burying himself in his studies. In high school, he started truly to shine.
Now look at these photographs. Now these are all from your high school yearbook. You were Superman. Looks like you were the star at everything.
I knew that this was going to be my thing. I was going to do well in school. I was going to do well academically.
School would become the incubator for Sanjay's talents, ambition, and his dreams.
This is a little strange, actually, to look at these photographs now because, you know, in some ways I don't think that these pictures were me. I think this was a guy who just wanted to, in some ways, keep a low profile by just blending in, you know, and I think that's what happened.
One generation further away from the immigrant experience, blonde-haired Martha Stewart grew up in the predominantly white suburb of Nutley, New Jersey. As a child, she fit in more easily than Sanjay and Margaret ever could. Martha was born Martha Kostyra on August 3, 1941. From childhood, she took great pride in her Polish heritage, as well as in her American identity.
I was a beautiful American girl.
You still are.
In a beautiful American family. And being Polish and having parents who spoke Polish, I was angry that they didn't teach me Polish. I only know a few words. But no, I've never hidden the fact that I was a granddaughter of immigrants. I've always celebrated it.
Martha's parents, Edward Kostyra, a pharmaceutical salesman, and Jadwiga Ruskowski, a teacher-turned-homemaker, were the children of Polish immigrants who came to America at the turn of the 20th century.
Here it is, only picture of our entire family together.
The Kostyra family.
Yes.
Tell me about your siblings. Were you close growing up?
Oh yeah, we had 3 bedrooms, 6 kids.
Yeah, no, you're too close.
6 kids, 2 parents.
On the surface, they appeared to be the all-American family. But 2 of Martha's brothers, at least as adults, rejected their Polish last name, Kostyra, for something more American-sounding.
My brother Eric said that he had to change his name because he wanted to build a very unethnic, dental practice. So Scott, why he chose Scott, I have no idea. We have nothing Scottish in our family. And then brother George, he changed his name, and he took his wife's name, which is Christensen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Were your parents alive when they did this?
Yeah.
Did your father go crazy?
No, he didn't seem to.
Really?
He didn't seem to, no.
Can you tell me why they did this?
Well, I did too, because I married somebody with the name Stewart. If my magazine were Martha Kostyra living, I don't know if it would have been as popular as Martha Stewart, which just kind of rolls off your tongue, and it's such a great brand name, like Ralph Lauren instead of Ralph Lipschitz. You know, it's the same thing.
Busy, active people, stop.
From early on, Martha focused on becoming financially independent.
I modeled all during college, but I also modeled all during high school, and I made commercials.
She found steady, lucrative work, appearing in ads both in print and on television.
Could you pay your own way through Barnum?
Oh, I did.
You did?
Oh, yes, I did. I supported me, and I supported our family. At one point, when my dad lost his job, my paychecks just went home.
In 1982, after a decade running a catering company, Martha wrote a how-to book. It was called Entertaining, and it elevated domesticity to an art form.
I didn't know I was going to be an author. I didn't know I was going to have a really great book that would sell 1 million copies or more, and it did.
Today, Martha's impact is so deep and pervasive, it's little wonder that many of us feel that we know her personally. But how much do we really know about who Martha Stewart is and where she came from? There was only one place to begin my investigation: Ellis Island, the iconic port of arrival for over 17 million people. Among them, all 4 of Martha's grandparents. I'm here to see Stephen Briganti, who runs the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation. He's offered to help me in my search.
So imagine the millions of people that have come up this very way.
Stephen wants to show me some documents that may yield valuable details about Martha's paternal ancestors.
The United States government, over time, required that manifests be kept. So once they got here, the ship captain simply gave the manifest to the officials of Ellis Island.
And what's a manifest?
A manifest is a listing of the people on the ship. It would have the normal sort of how old are you, what's your occupation, are you a man or a woman. Interesting things that it might have on it is how much money you came with, where you were coming from, where you were going to, sometimes right down to an address. So it's a wonderful depository for tracing your heritage.
And sure enough, buried in the records is the ship manifest for Martha's grandmother, Helena Krukar, also known as Helen. In 1904, as a teenager, she made the 11-day journey to New York on the SS Moltke, all by herself. Martha, this is a passenger list for your grandmother, Helen.
Helen Krukar, age 16. Literacy, yes. And money in possession, $2.
$2. And this document indicates that she's traveling alone. Now, she has $2. Can you imagine how terrifying that must have been?
On an ocean voyage.
In steerage.
Yeah.
Did she ever talk about this journey?
No, never. And I just wish I could just wake her up and have her tell me right now.
I find this, the moments of crossing, particularly moving, and
Well, especially
particularly
a
when
16-year-old.
and she was starting a new life in a new world alone. She had to be petrified. The manifest also tells us that there was someone waiting for Helen when she got off the ship, her brother Henry, who had settled in New York City the year before.
Now, she arrived with $2, so let's hope her brother met her right at the dock. It goes right down to where he was living at 111 East 58th Street in New York.
In 1908, Helen married another recent Polish immigrant, Martha's grandfather, Frank Kostyra. They met while working at a restaurant called Child's in Lower Manhattan. Frank immigrated to the United States in 1905, a year after Helen. We found his manifest records at Ellis Island as well.
It tells us that he was 25 years old at the time that he came. He was a basket maker.
A basket maker?
A basket maker.
Your grandfather's occupation is listed as basket maker. Had you had any knowledge?
I hadn't heard that before.
Well, it turns out that the town that your grandfather came from, Kopke, is renowned for its wicker and basket production. Her grandfather's profession back in Poland was certainly news to Martha. In fact, he wasn't alone. Surprisingly, it turns out that many of her ancestors were highly skilled in the domestic arts. In addition to basket makers, her family tree is populated with butchers, gardeners, shoemakers, decorative ironworkers, seamstresses. You have a whole leitmotif running through your family. I mean, you are an extension of this concern with sewing and craftsmanship and gardening. It just, on every branch of your family tree. I mean, it just kept repeating.
I think that those inherent interests, because they did come down from generation to generation, pretty strong feelings for living the good life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
It makes you believe in genetic determinism.
But as we dug more deeply, we discovered some troubling gaps in Martha's genealogy, where details on her family tree simply disappear. Growing up, Martha was very close to her grandmother Helen, the grandmother who came to America by herself at the age of 16 many decades before. Nevertheless, Martha knows virtually nothing about the lives of Helen's parents. Helen and other family members didn't care to dwell on the past.
Did they talk about, let me tell you how good it was in the old days in the old country?
No, I had to get it out of them. I mean, memories were not as prevalent or spoken about in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot, and I'm sorry I don't. I wish I had been a little bit more inquisitive.
These are Martha's great-grandparents, Tekla Grosevich and Walenty Krukar, who didn't leave Poland when their daughter Helen did. Mysteriously, both died in 1920. Our research unearthed a remarkable letter from Helen's husband to his family that holds clues about their fate. Martha has never seen this letter before.
We had lots of clothes and shoes to send home to my wife's parents, but now Bolsheviks took everything, and they do not have anything. We sent 2 ship tickets for passage to America to my wife's sister and brother because their parents died and the house burned down and they do not have anybody there in the country.
Astonishing.
Wow.
In 1919, less than a year after the end of World War I, bitter fighting broke out in a war between the newly independent Polish state and Soviet Russia. The town of Zagorz, home to Martha's great-grandparents, was torn apart by the fighting.
Bolsheviks took everything,
Yep.
and they do not have anything.
And they died, the parents died, but they don't say why.
No, they don't say why. Did you know about this?
No.
We suspect that both of Martha's great-grandparents died in 1920 when the fighting reached Zagorz. With no parents or home to return to, 6 out of their 8 children ultimately settled in America. For Martha Stewart, Margaret Cho, and Sanjay Gupta, the courageous pioneering spirit that compelled their families to risk everything and move to America was shaped by strikingly similar themes of exodus and upheaval. Their family histories are each colored by a deep sense of loss. And no wonder, each was directly affected by political turmoil that tore apart families and entire nations in the process.
First day of school.
In fact, Sanjay Gupta's mother, Damayanti, lived through one of the worst social upheavals in contemporary history, the partition of India.
She was very young when this terrible partition happened. I've tried to find out just how violent was it for real, what she saw, but she doesn't talk about it that much.
To secure independence, the Hindus had with great reluctance accepted partition.
In 1947, partition divided India into 2 nations, creating the new Muslim state of Pakistan. In the chaos, more than 1 million people lost their lives. 14 million Muslims and Hindus were displaced, among them 5-year-old Damayanti and her Hindu family. They were forced to flee their ancestral home in Sindh, Pakistan. Damayanti spoke with us about her memories of that night.
I remember that we had to leave very, very early, middle of the night, so nobody can recognize us. My dad's mother, she didn't want to even leave. She says, I came as a bride and I'm not leaving this place. You know, she loved her place so much. And actually, I remember she used to carry a big keychain, it was round, and she had several keys, and she knew exactly which key fitted which lock. She had locked everything. And she used to tell me one day she's going to go back and open all that.
Sanjay's great-grandmother reluctantly left with the rest of the family. They made the perilous journey over land from their home in Sindh to Karachi, then by boat to Bombay. With every mile they traveled, they were unwittingly and permanently leaving so much of their past and of their family's history further and further behind. They would never return to their ancestral home again.
I find the story of the key so deeply moving.
I can't believe that they hung on to this key. That's proof of where they expected their lives to go. Mm-hmm. They wanted to go back. They wanted to go back to where their homes were.
Or proof that even if she knew she couldn't go back, where her heart was.
Yeah, right.
Forced to leave almost all of their worldly possessions behind, Sanjay's family's ancestral paper trail on his mother's side runs out. The story of Sanjay's mother being forced to flee her home with virtually nothing still resonates deeply with him. It's the defining climactic event that separates him from the ability to gain a deeper understanding of his family's roots.
There is a cultural thing that I see among Indians, and maybe it's among Indians who emigrated away from India. There is a desire to protect their kids from some of the tougher parts of their lives.
Margaret Cho also has gaps in her family tree because of what she knows or doesn't know about why her father had to abandon his ancestral home in 1948. The reasons behind his family's hurried escape from what's now North Korea have long been shrouded in mystery.
What did your father tell you about his childhood during this time?
There was not a lot of real evidence of what happened to my family. So I think a lot of the specific memories that were really stifled. They didn't want to talk about that with us.
Mm-hmm. Many older black people were like that. Trauma. You didn't pass it on. If you didn't talk about it, it never happened.
Right.
Or it would never happen again.
Yeah.
When I visited Margaret's parents, I learned that her father is still very conflicted about the long-buried family secret that compelled his family to leave the North. In fact, he's never revealed the reason to Margaret.
I wanted to have her know what kind of world we went through. Mm-hmm. But we have been unable to show her, fully. Mm. And I have many regrets about, that thing, really.
Mr. Cho's father, Myung-suk Cho, worked for the Japanese as a station master during their occupation of Korea, which began in 1905. According to Mr. Cho, when Japan withdrew from Korea at the end of World War II, his father was branded a traitor by North Korea's new communist leadership.
So our family decided to move from North Korea to South Korea.
Mm-hmm. So that was why.
Right.
Mr. Cho was a 10-year-old boy at the time. I wondered how Margaret would react to the details of this story, which she had never heard before.
To the communists, your grandfather's former job as a civil servant for the Japanese made him an enemy of the state. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
Did your father ever talk about this?
No, they never. They wouldn't have.
They wouldn't have.
They wouldn't have. I can see why they wouldn't reveal that to me or to any of my generation. That would be too hard to face.
In 1948, Korea was divided along the 38th parallel into two countries. Today, this 160-mile-long fortified border has cut the Chos off from any records containing details about their family's history in the North. The dividing lines that can separate us from our past aren't always delineated by gun towers, barbed wire, or heavily guarded borders. Time, distance, the inscrutable nature of memory can also wear away at our family's collective history until it is all but lost to us. Sanjay Gupta's paternal ancestors have lived for generations in the same part of India, the state of Haryana, just outside of Delhi. Even so, Sanjay can only trace his ancestors on his father's side back to his grandfather. We wanted to see if we could go back further.
Now, all of the experts that we asked told us the same thing. In India, genealogy remains an oral tradition. In short, you have to go to where the family came from and ask around. Right? Like, who's the boy's daddy? Who's he really look like? So that's what we did.
Our researchers went straight to the source, India, where they tracked down a distant cousin of Sanjay's, Binod Mittal. Even though they're blood relatives, Sanjay and Binod have never met. We asked Binod to travel to the village of Doab in an attempt to locate his great-grandfather's home, the great-grandfather that he and Sanjay both share. Binod knew him personally, but Sanjay doesn't even know his name. A relative still living nearby promised to take Binod to the house.
कोरो तक चला गया, को दिल्ली चला गया, को अमेरिका चला गया। हाँ, ये वाली हवेलियाँ थी सारी। ये तो दोबारा बिक के राम राम जी। राम राम जी।
Throughout the journey, villagers were excited to share stories about Sanjay's great-grandfather. His name, we learned, was Molar Chand.
आपने बाबा मुल्लड़ हमारा याद है जी? हाँ हाँ हाँ। बाबा मुल्लड़ याद है? हाँ मुल्लड़ ये फिर क्या है? हमारा सेठ था वो। आपका सेठ थे? हाँ हमारा सेठ था वो। अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा। हाँ। हमारा बाबा तो बहुत तगड़ा था। हाँ तगड़ा, घना तगड़ा। बहुत तगड़ा था। थोड़ा और परदादा जो था मोलट था। मोलट थी, हाँ जी। उड़े जहाँ बाजे फिर के बाद सुना देगा जी कि गेल तो मजाक। ना मैंने सुना बहुत हट्टे कट्टे थे, बड़ी अच्छी शरीर बहुत अच्छा था उनका। अच्छा था। काम था ना घना अच्छा। वो भी बताना हमारे को।
Sanjay, when we went back, many people wanted to tell us stories about your great-grandfather. He has a kind of legendary status.
Is that right? What'd they tell you?
People said that Molar Chand was a big man. That was the most frequently used adjective, that he was a big man, both in his community and physically.
Nearby, Sanjay's great-grandfather owned another home, which he built early in the 20th century. All that remains today is the foundation.
He was also generous and religious. When he left the village, he gave his house to the village priests. And they were still living here in that same house up to the monsoon of 2011.
I can't believe this is what you're talking about is stuff still happening now. I mean, this is a complete collision of my worlds.
To dig even deeper, we sent Sanjay's cousin to Hardwar, located on the Ganges River. Hardwar is a place of tremendous genealogical importance to Hindus. Pilgrims come to Hardwar to consult with family priests who have recorded their gotras, the male lineages on their family trees. We arranged for Binod to meet with two priests who have devoted their lives to writing down family histories. We're hoping that we'll discover other details about Sanjay's extended family, hidden in these cryptically encoded scrolls.
मदन गोपाल जी हरनाम दास ये है ना
जी, ये भी हमारी फैमिली है जी।
1869 का है।
लाला मोलट चंद जी, ये संजय जी के ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर जी।
These are two priests, they're brothers, and they are the keepers of your family's ledger, or bahi. They inherited this responsibility from their father, who inherited it from his father.
That's amazing.
And one day, their sons will take over from them.
So it's all, I mean, it's all written down? Like?
That's your family history, my brother.
That's an amazing thing. I have to go.
Oh, you have to go.
I have to go see this.
बेटे लाला मोलरचंद जी के, ते लाला पतराम दास जी के.
The scrolls contain information going back, incredibly, 8 generations on Sanjay's father's line. Cousins, grandparents, great-grandparents, and beyond, they're all here. A symbolic gathering of generations of ancestors, of family members that Sanjay never even knew he had.
और इधर पोते भिक्कू राम जी के.
The precious information found in this scroll allowed us to recover over 2 centuries of Sanjay's lost family history.
Would you take a look at this? You're going to need a little help.
Let's see what Destiny has to offer here. Wow. Wow. Well, that's a family tree.
That is your family tree, my brother.
That is a big tree, Skip. Wow, look at this.
This is only the male ancestors on your paternal line, your father's line.
This is probably one of the most valuable pieces of paper I'm gonna have in my life. This is unbelievable.
There are all kind of people from Europe who can't trace their ancestors by name back to the late 18th century.
Really something, and I just didn't know so much of this. I didn't know any of this. I need I need to really process all this. Sit down.
2 lucky breaks, locating Sanjay's cousin Binod, and then the Hardwar scrolls made these discoveries possible. I'm hoping we can do the same for Margaret, who can only trace her father's family line back to her great-grandfather. Even so, she's determined to learn more about her family tree.
We all want to know. I mean, we all want to see like where we come from, and it's such a terrible pain to kind of be cut off from your family and to be cut off from what really is your home.
To help me discover more about Margaret's roots, I've called on Professor Eugene Park, a specialist in Korean social history at the University of Pennsylvania. Professor Park shared with me an interesting fact. In Korea, family clans can be traced back hundreds of years to a genealogical point of origin, a progenitor. Think of this progenitor as a sort of founding father, the individual who gives the clan its name and its status.
With Korean genealogies, we're looking at a triangle with a progenitor located at the top of the triangle. And of course, as we go down the triangle, the base becomes wider, and the base consists of the progenitor's direct male descendants.
The progenitor's male descendants are all recorded in a genealogical record called a jokbo, which is passed down from generation to generation. Today, there are over 4,000 clans in Korea, each with its own jokbo.
I think for someone interested in tracing his or her ancestry, it's a very special endeavor. It's in many ways is about his or her existence, finding his or her place in history.
There's reason to believe that Margaret's father's family descends from the Pyongyang Cho clan. We discovered this from a family registry kept by the South Korean government. We began our search for the clan's progenitor, not in Korea, but instead much closer to home, at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah.
We're getting close. This is going to tie into...
There we are. Administered by the Mormon Church, the library collects, catalogs, and preserves genealogies from all around the world.
Hi, how's the research going?
Tamara Stansfield is a research expert in the library's international wing.
Our focus is to collect any kind of records that reflect genealogical need. We gather gazetteers, history books, address books, anything that would assist someone in finding their ancestor anywhere in the world. On site, we have over 150,000 books, and we have around 2.5 million microfilms that would contain billions of images.
For the Mormons, genealogy is a critical part of their religion. They research family trees to identify deceased ancestors so they can be posthumously baptized and, according to the faith, reunited with their families in the afterlife. Today, the church's Family History Library contains all sorts of family records and documents, both about Mormons and non-Mormons. It's the largest genealogical collection of its kind in the world. With a bit of luck, Margaret's family's clan history will be here. Ellen Lee is a specialist in Asian clan genealogies. After combing through the library's holdings, she's located a microfilm copy of Margaret's family's particular jokbo, their family's record book. And here, buried in these records, is the actual name and biography of Margaret's family's progenitor, Cho In-gyu, born in the year 1237.
He is like the main ancestor because he did a lot of great things according to the biographies.
The jokbo is filled with details about Cho's life and accomplishments. He was a translator who bridged the language gap between the Korean king and the Mongol rulers of China. One of his daughters was even married off to the king. Margaret has absolutely no idea that she can trace her family tree back this far.
Now, this is the jokbo entry for your most illustrious ancestor. His name was Cho In-gyu, and he was born in the year 1237. And that's how far you could go back on your family.
Amazing. Yeah.
Only a few Americans could possibly ever do that.
Right.
You know, this is knowing that you come from such distinguished ancestors in Korea. Would that have helped you when you were a kid to know this?
Oh, I think it would have helped tremendously. I mean, I think it would have been very powerful to have a sense of history. When I was going to school, it seemed like other kids could really recognize or respond to history in a way that was personal, and I could never. I think it's really powerful to know.
For Margaret, the details we discovered in the family jokbo completely transformed her understanding of her ancestry. Martha Stewart is in for a big surprise as well. To learn more about her ancestors on her mother's side, our research team located her family's baptism records in Poland. And in them, they discovered something quite extraordinary.
Now, you grew up practicing Roman Catholicism.
Exactly.
As far as you know, all your relatives and distant ancestors in Poland were probably Roman Catholic too, right?
I hadn't ever heard anything else.
Well, not all of them.
Oh.
Because there's a good chance that at least some of your ancestors were Muslim.
Oh, Muslim.
Muslim.
Ah.
It turns out Martha's possible Muslim ancestry is connected to her grandmother's last name, Albiniak, which goes back multiple generations, and to the town called Janov, where her family once lived.
The name Albiniak is associated with an ethnic group called the Tatars. And the town of Janov has been inhabited by Tatars and their descendants for centuries and centuries.
Huh.
They were part of Genghis Khan's Mongol Empire.
And my dog's name is Genghis Khan.
Really?
Yes.
Well, it all lines up. You surprised or not surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. I'm open to any kind of thing like this because Europe was constantly changing. People were coming from everywhere to going everywhere. And it's extremely, it's sort of exciting to find this out.
The Tatars, a nomadic people who lived throughout East and Central Asia, were conquered by Genghis Khan's army in 1202. Later, most Tatars embraced Islam. Some began settling in Poland as early as the 15th century. But can we go back even further in time? Can we confirm Martha's Tatar roots through her DNA? Certain DNA tests act like a genetic global positioning system, providing valuable clues about where our ancestors once lived. In Martha's case, we can't test the Albiniac line directly, but working with 23andMe, a genetic testing service, we can identify the haplogroup or genetic signature encoded in Martha's direct maternal line.
Your maternal haplogroup is W6. Now, W6 is all these women, straight up, have the same genetic signature, right? And the haplogroup
W6 originated in Central Asia over 35,000 years ago. Then it spread to the area around present-day Pakistan, lending support to the theory that at least some of Martha's ancestors, those on her mother's line, were Muslim Tatars.
I wouldn't mind being related to Genghis Khan.
Yeah, well, we think you probably are.
We also wanted to find out what DNA analysis could tell us about Sanjay Gupta's family tree. I'm hoping that the same DNA test we gave Martha can help us understand where Sanjay's maternal ancestors were from.
And you can see from this map that U2C occurs in a very concentrated area. U2 arose in the Near East about 45,000 years ago.
It turns out that U2C, Sanjay's mother's haplogroup, appears most often among the Sindhi people of southern Pakistan.
So we have a slam dunk between our genealogical research and the genetic evidence in your DNA.
So it all fits.
This suggests that your mother's family may have been in the Sindh region for a very, very long time.
We know where home is.
Yep.
They've been there forever.
Forever. Since the dawn of civilization in India.
Yeah.
For Margaret, I'm hoping that the DNA test will be a way to restore some of her missing family history as well. Margaret's test revealed that the haplogroup extending along her maternal line is called D5A, which is common in China. But it turns out it's extremely rare in Korea.
It only appears in less than 1% of all Korean women. It is extremely rare.
This suggests that Margaret's ancestors on her mother's side weren't originally from Korea. And according to another DNA test, neither were her fathers.
I think that's really fascinating. I mean, I think because of the amount of national pride that my parents both seem to have, you know, that it's surprising that they're from, like, other places, actually.
The fact is, you don't have to go too far back in time to see that our ancestors have all been constantly on the move. And it can be measured in our genes, just as it can in the paper records our ancestors left behind.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, I can't wait to go over it. It's with my family.
Oh,
everybody's going to be very interested. We will have a Ancestor Day.
This is your family tree that we can actually trace with the paper trail.
It's wonderful. I mean, it's really wonderful to know. I think they would be really maybe pretty shocked at the way that I live.
And when we find ourselves on new and unfamiliar shores, those deeper connections to our past can help to ground us.
Do you feel more Indian today than you did yesterday?
Yeah, I feel more Indian today. And I feel greater pride about it as well. I've always been proud to be Indian, but now I feel like I have a real story to tell.
Please join us next time as we introduce more guests to long-lost ancestors on their family trees on the next episode of Finding Your Roots.
I came from free people.
Free at last. This is pretty amazing.
Look at this legacy. Look at this. I'm speechless.
Finding your roots.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. Welcome to Finding Your Roots, a journey into the ancestral past of some of America's most fascinating people. In this episode, we'll explore the family trees of comedian Wanda Sykes and Grammy-winning musician John Legend. Both John and Wanda are descended from ancestors who defy our most basic assumptions about life in the United States during the slave era. And nobody can trace their family tree back, black, further than you are.
They're saying that you made everything up.
Remarkably, we were able to trace John and Wanda's families back hundreds of years
Sweet Jesus.
and rediscover the most unexpected stories.
Wait a minute. Huh?
This is the document that freed your ancestors.
That's amazing. I can't believe it.
Hello, hello, hello.
And we'll also talk to a very special guest, my dear friend, the Venerable Margaret Cooper, who at the age of 98 has spent half a century investigating a remarkable tale on her own family tree.
When you've done something for a long, long time, and you're very old, you know you can't live much longer, you would like to say, I'd like to find that out before I die.
To uncover the truth about Margaret, John, and Wanda's ancestors, we've consulted with leading historians of slavery and asked some of the nation's best genealogists to scour Southern archives that date back to the colonial period. At the end of the paper trail, we turn to geneticists who use cutting-edge DNA analysis to take us even further back into each guest's ancestral past. This is your very own Book of Life.
Wow.
We compiled all of our findings into a Book of Life,
Okay.
a record of the discoveries we've made for each of our guests.
I'm excited.
And I'm going to walk you through its pages back in time.
Fornication and bastardy with a Negro slave.
Peyton Polly, your ancestor, didn't take this lying down.
It makes me proud that I had ancestors that didn't take no for an answer.
I'm honored to be able to introduce you to your ancestors.
Okay. Wait, do any of them need money?
The stories of John and Wanda's ancestors bring to light a little-known but crucial chapter in the history of the African-American people's struggle for freedom. A struggle as old as the nation itself. This is Williamsport, West Virginia. And this is the farm where Joe and Sarah Bruce, my fourth paternal great-grandparents, were held in bondage as slaves. That's the story most of us expect to find when we search for an African-American's deepest family roots. But what's unusual in this case is that we found the will of their master, and he set Joe and Sarah free in 1823. That's 42 years before the 13th Amendment finally ended slavery once and for all. What's even more remarkable is that they were not alone. The story of the African-American people has often been reduced to one-dimensional stereotypes and cliches, especially when it comes to slavery. But the lives of my free ancestors, as well as those of Margaret, John, and Wanda, reveal that the truth about the lives of Black people in antebellum America was anything but simple.
Please put your hands together for Miss Wanda Sykes!
Wanda Sykes is one of our most popular and fearless comedians.
Yeah.
finding humor even in the most controversial topics.
It's hard out there. People are just bitching and complaining. We broke, we broke, we broke. I gotta tell you, it really is a downer for those of us who do have money.
She brings her no-holds-barred style with her, no matter where she goes.
I know you're biracial, but the first black president. I'm proud to be able to say that. Well, that's unless you screw up. And then it's gonna be, what's up with the half-white guy, huh?
In 2009, she became the first African-American female and the first openly gay comedian to MC the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
When I got the call, I was like, wait a minute, run that by me again? They want me to do what?
You were pretty edgy.
That's what I did, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the only way I could do it. You know, and even the media, you know, you guys have been very favorable towards the president. You know, it's funny to me that they've never caught you smoking, but they somehow always catch you with your shirt off. I know you're into this transparency thing, but I don't need to see your nipples. Too much?
And no topic is off limits for Wanda, who quite openly discusses her personal life, including her biracial relationship with her wife, Alex. In 2008, Wanda took a public stand on same-sex marriage at a rally in Las Vegas.
Instead of having gay marriage in California, no, we're gonna get it across the country.
Wanda started turning provocation into an art as the younger of two children in a conservative military family in the 1960s in Virginia.
I was an outspoken kid, you know. I got in trouble a lot just for being outspoken. If a friend would visit my mother and I would look at her and I would go, you know, your part is crooked. Like, and you know, the lady had her wig on crooked, but I would like say something and back then, you know, kids weren't supposed to say things like that.
After college, Wanda found the perfect outlet for her outspokenness, comedy. By day, Wanda worked a desk job at the National Security Agency. But after hours, she began to hone a stand-up routine at local talent shows. Success in her new field, however, did not come easily.
What did your parents say?
They thought I was nuts. Oh man. And I messed up and I invited them to a show.
What was that like?
Too early on in my career. Oh my, it was awful. It was, I mean, I was miserable. I think I didn't sleep for like a week after that. And my mother just kept saying, it's okay, you have a good government job. You don't need these people. You know, I'm like.
What, did the people boo you or something?
Oh, they booed. They took their chairs and turned them all the way around. I think a card game broke out. It was just awful.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
Oh.
So how did you pick your behind up a week later and go back on the stage?
I loved it. I loved doing stand-up. You just got to get on stage until you have that good show.
Wanda told me that tenacity seems to be an inherited Sykes family trait. But she's never been able to learn very much about the ancestors who passed it on to her.
I do have a strength and some mechanism that allows me to, you know, when things are bad, that I can see some good and find a purpose for it. Mm-hmm. And that has to come from somewhere. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something in these jeans. These are some dungaree jeans I got. It's tough. It's some...
I see Jesus, the man who made me free, was a man, bled and suffered, he died for you and me.
Like Wanda, singer-songwriter John Legend has been cut off from any meaningful knowledge about his family's past.
I haven't done any research into my roots. I hear, you know, little bits and pieces from your family folklore, mm-hmm. but you really don't know all the details and really understand.
Today, John is a platinum-selling musician who's won 9 Grammy Awards and collaborated with artists like Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Alicia Keys. But John's beginnings were quite modest. He was born in 1978 in Springfield, Ohio. His father worked in a factory, and his mother was a seamstress. John's earliest exposure to music came when he sang traditional black gospel in his church choir. He sat for his first piano lesson when he was just 5 years old.
There's an older lady, and she taught classical music and hymns, and I grew up in the church and played gospel music, which is more kind of rambunctious and exciting and energetic.
She said, we're going to rein that black stuff in.
Yeah, well, it was just more like, you know, it was more staid and more traditional. And then my grandmother provided the other side, you know, which was more kind of bluesy, gospel, more soulful.
Holy Ghost.
Yes, exactly. We went to a Pentecostal church, exactly.
Singing and playing. I think he thought he was Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles or somebody.
Legend's dad, Ron Stevens, showed us an old family video, rare footage of John leading the church choir, singing one of his earliest compositions.
When I got up and sang at church and saw people get up and clap and get excited, I was like, man, this is the life. This is what I want to do.
To the outside world, John's family seemed to have it all. They were pillars of the church, and they even homeschooled their 4 children. But behind closed doors, John's parents' marriage began inexplicably to fall apart. In 1987, they finally divorced.
I never thought, based upon the history that we had as a couple and as parents, that anything like that would ever happen.
John's father won custody of the children, and his mother moved out of the house.
And so he was a kind of the rare instance of a single black father raising 4 kids. And my mother was out on the streets. Basically, she got involved in drugs and really a very tough life and got in trouble. She got arrested a few times, you know. Things just went very, very badly for quite a while.
John, only 9, attempted to cope with this loss by throwing himself into his music. And over time, his tremendous success has given him an opportunity to help his mother get back on her feet.
She's in a better place than she was back then.
Thank God.
And thank God. And you know, I think I'm in a good position now, obviously, to help her and make sure she's in a better place.
How I got over. My soul look back and wonder how I got over.
John and Wanda have risen to the pinnacles of their professions using prodigious talent and lots of hard work. But they also stand on the shoulders of generations of family members about whom they know almost nothing. What could we learn about these ancestors? What were their names? What were their lives like? We started our search with Wanda. We traced her father's side to Surry County, Virginia, where her ancestors were living in the 1870s. But we wanted to see if we could trace them back before the Civil War. Of the roughly 500,000 African Americans in Virginia in 1860, the vast majority were slaves, and they were rarely listed in public documents by name. We searched the property records of local slave owners for any clues about Wanda's ancestors. Then, our genealogist, Johnny Cerny, discovered something quite surprising. A marriage certificate dated 1853, bearing the names of John Francis and Elizabeth Banks. They are Wanda's great-great-great-grandparents. Johnny explained that the fact that Wanda's ancestors could legally marry revealed an irrefutable detail about their lives.
Slaves did not have marriages. They were the property of someone else. They had no rights. Marriage was a right. It was a condition of life that was only entered into by free people.
So this marriage record proves that John and Elizabeth must have been free, a fact that took us and Wanda completely by surprise.
Wanda, this is 8 years before the Civil War began. Your ancestors were free before emancipation in Virginia.
I had no idea that, you know, I came from free people.
I mean, slaves couldn't even legally get married. Nothing that the law would recognize.
Right.
This was a legal wedding between two people who were free.
Wow.
But in the antebellum South, free Negroes were always in peril. During the 1850s, laws in various states prohibited them from voting, testifying against white people in court, and marrying across the color line. In Virginia, free people of color had to carry papers to prove their free status. Otherwise, they could be thrown in jail, or worse, sold back into slavery.
So Elizabeth's freedom was always at risk, and she always had to have papers with her to prove that she was free. I mean, some free Negroes were snatched.
Snatched up and ripped
tear
the
up
little
the paper.
papers out, right.
Right.
Like a bad credit card.
Absolutely.
I mean, they must have been some incredibly strong and incredibly proud people, you know? I mean, and did they socialize? Could they socialize with other blacks who weren't free? I mean, what is, you know, what is that life?
Let's get out of the plantation, hang out with the slaves.
Yeah. I think Leroy's finished with the crops. Let me go. Yeah, he's usually off about this time. Let me go. You know, no. And fill my shirt. That's nice, huh? Y'all, man, I'm telling y'all do a good job. I mean, what?
50 years before Wanda's ancestors got married, John Legend's paternal fifth great-grandfather was living in the hills of Pike County, Kentucky. He was a slave working the farm of his master. We wanted to see what else we could learn about his life. At the Pike County Courthouse, our researcher, David Deskins, searched for any clues about John's ancestor, whose name was Peyton Polly.
These are the last wills and testaments. Anything that was done with property at that time, and slaves were property, will be found here. Here's David Polly, and here's his will and testament. This is, I think, where we need to start.
Embedded in the will of this master, David Polly, we made a marvelous discovery.
After my death, I will and direct that my slaves, to wit, Doug, Peyton, John, and Spencer, be free and liberated from all servitude. That's amazing. I can't believe it.
This is the document that freed your ancestors.
Wow.
According to this will, John's ancestor, Peyton Polly, would become free upon the death of his master. Peyton remained enslaved for 8 more years, until 1847, when his owner died. And then Peyton, along with his brother and son, was freed. Looking closer at the will, we learned that David Polly, his master, had actually left Peyton land and money to start his life as a free man.
So not only does this David Polly promise to free his slaves, including John and Peyton.
He basically treats them like his kids.
Why do you think he would treat your family members that way?
Well, you know, even in the depths of this, awful institution, these are still human beings, and the owners are still human beings. And I think spending enough time around slaves, you realize that they're human beings too, even though legally they're not treated as such. Mm-hmm. And so I think he grew to love them probably, and so he looked at them as his family.
Unbeknownst to Peyton, however, his odyssey was only just beginning. Peyton had 7 other sons and daughters still being held in slavery elsewhere in Kentucky. We found no trace of their mother. Peyton refused to leave the state without them. And then we came upon something quite surprising, a bill of sale dated 1849, selling the 7 Polly children to Peyton's brother, Douglas. To understand why a former slave would buy his own relatives, we headed to the University of Memphis, where historian Susan O'Donovan studies antebellum American history.
Free people of color sometimes find it in their best interest to own their families. I mean, for starters, this is, you know, they're living in a system that's structured around the protection of slave property, so you kind of have law on your side. In buying one's family, you have control over that family, and then you can, you know, free them.
Because freed slaves were always vulnerable to kidnapping in the South, the most sensible way for Peyton to protect his children was to move to a state where slavery was prohibited. So the Polly family embarked on a dangerous journey, traveling 100 miles north through slaveholding Kentucky, across the river to the free state of Ohio. There, Peyton's children were liberated, their rights recognized and protected by the law.
Must have been amazing.
I mean, what a rush.
Yeah.
Across the Ohio River.
Yes, free at last.
Peyton and his children settled in Ironton, one of the southernmost towns in Ohio. We tracked down a direct descendant of the Pollys who still lives in the area. His name is James Hale. Peyton Polly was James's great-great-great-grandfather, which makes him John Legend's 4th cousin, although the two have never met.
Kind of remember when these were all dirt roads out here, and this was really out in the country. This is the backbone of the community that came here in the 1800s. They would ring the bell, not just for religion, but for social gatherings. Everything was done right here.
James is a member of the same church in Ironton that Peyton Polly attended 160 years ago.
They had hit the lotto. They were free. They were farmers. They were working their land. They were earning a living. They were keeping their family. And wow, what happens?
What happened next is hard to believe. One night in June of 1850, a band of armed white men from Kentucky crossed the Ohio River, made their way to Peyton Polly's home, and broke in the door with an axe. One of the intruders fired a shot at Peyton's head, grazing him and knocking him to the ground. The other white men kidnapped all 8 children, dragging them across the Ohio River back into the depths of slavery.
So a kidnapper came, shot the dad, and took the kids. Wow.
Imagine you get to Ohio and you're free. You think you're safe forever. You go to bed one night. All of a sudden, these people show up.
Jesus.
They shoot your ancestor, and they steal the kids.
Wow. The plot thickens.
Although John had never heard of his 5th great-grandfather, Paul Finkelman, a leading expert on slave-era law, had been obsessed with Peyton Polly's case for years. Over the last quarter century, Paul has collected a veritable library of documentation about the Polly case, recording the unbelievable chapters of this family's painful saga.
There's tons of the stuff. There's page after page, letter after letter, deposition, all about this case.
Paul had been researching the legal fate of runaway or fugitive slaves when he stumbled upon these records detailing the Polly story.
They weren't fugitive slaves. This is the opposite of fugitive slaves. This is the kidnapping of free people and dragging them back to slavery.
Paul had never seen a case like this, where kidnappers had crossed state lines to abduct a whole family in a free state.
I think the kidnappers have no legal claims or even pretend to have any legal claims. The reality is they see these free black people. They think we can kidnap them because they're children, and it is a matter of force and greed.
By February of 1851, 8 months after the kidnapping, the Polly children unfortunately remained in slavery.
Jesus.
Not only that, John, they had been separated.
Wow.
The kidnappers sold the Polly children, ages 4 to 17, to various masters throughout Kentucky and Virginia. Recently freed himself, what possible options did Peyton Polly have to get his family back?
Peyton Polly, of course, is beside himself. He certainly can't go after the kidnappers alone. They outgun him, outnumber him. They're stronger than he is. The only thing he can do is go to the authorities.
Just a decade before the outbreak of the Civil War, it may have seemed foolhardy for a former slave to put his faith in the rule of law. Yet that's exactly what Peyton did.
He goes to the local prosecutor. The local prosecutor writes the governor, Reuben Wood. Of course, blacks can't vote in Ohio, so he's not worried about the black vote. But the governor is worried about what Ohio would claim to be its state's rights. Ohio does not want ruffians from Kentucky coming into Ohio and kidnapping people and taking them somewhere else. And so the governor intervenes and immediately sends somebody to Kentucky and Virginia to investigate this. And this begins a long saga of how do you get the Pollys back.
The problem was, even though the Ohio governor believed that the Polly children deserved to be free, their status had to be proven in the states where they were now living, slaveholding Kentucky and Virginia.
So, John, the House, the Senate, and Governor of Ohio took on your ancestors' case.
My.
And they took it on with a vengeance.
This is crazy.
Sending investigators into the hills to track down the kidnappers. They spent thousands of dollars on lawyers.
This is insane. I can't believe that happened.
They did everything they could to try to rescue those children, your ancestors.
Wow. It's amazing that so many governors and all these important people who were involved in trying to rescue my family.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe,
Yeah.
even knowing it's true.
I'm very surprised. It sounds like this would like help ignite the Civil War. Like, how dare you?
Peyton found himself caught between the pro and anti-slavery forces that were beginning to pull the nation apart.
Oh, I mean, certainly tensions between free states and slaveholding states are on the rise in the 1850s. And part of that is a result of people like the Pollys, because they're putting these problems on the front burner. Who protects them? Are they really free? And the Ohio governor steps in and he says, yes, they are really free. Well, in saying they're really free, he's annoying a bunch of people in Kentucky. Sectional crisis is deepening.
In Kentucky, the Attorney General made an unexpected decision. He ordered the immediate release of the 4 Polly children illegally enslaved there. Peyton was reunited with half of his family. But Virginia, the largest slave state in the Union, dug in its heels.
The Virginia courts stonewall. They do not want these free people to be returned to freedom. And Virginia is saying, we don't care if they are free. We see them as black people. We think black people should be slaves. We will treat them accordingly.
While the governments of Ohio and Virginia debated the case, 4 of the Polly children, Anna, Nelson, Louisa, and Harrison, James Hale's great-great-grandfather, remained enslaved for over a decade until national events would finally set them free.
These 4 people were held in bondage until the Civil War, and then they were released. Evidently, Harrison made it back to Ohio because I'm here.
That means that despite all the legal battles, it wasn't until the 13th Amendment officially ended slavery in 1865 that all the Pollys were finally freed, for good this time. It had been a decade since the kidnapping. The children were now grown. But finally, the whole family was reunited again.
And when the Civil War came, they got released. And one of those that got released in the Civil War was our great-great-grandfather Harrison Pauley. It makes me feel like being a very fortunate person that I didn't have to live in that time, that I didn't have to live through all of the struggles that they had to go through just to achieve their freedom. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Amen. Dig in.
Isn't it astonishing that this is a history-making court case and that knowledge of this could be lost to the Pauleys?
Yeah.
To their descendants, to you.
To us, yeah. The fact that my grandparents don't talk about this or my dad and mom don't know about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
But now the story's back.
Yeah, it's back.
It's back.
The Pauleys' legal battle was exceptional, but free black people lived and built communities in every state in the Republic. And they had to navigate the contradictions of living in a country founded upon the principles of liberty for all, but built upon an economic foundation of race-based slavery. For Wanda Sykes on her father's line, this apparent paradox, being black and free in America, defined almost every aspect of her ancestors' lives. We trace Wanda's free ancestors back to her great-great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth Banks, who was married in the 1850s. But we wondered if Elizabeth's parents and grandparents could have been free as well. We searched the registers of free Negroes, which free black people were required to file in Virginia. These records led us back to Elizabeth's grandfather, Benjamin Banks, who lived in the late 1700s, and miraculously, he too was free.
So, not just her parents' parents?
Your fifth great-grandfather, his name was Benjamin Banks.
Benjamin Banks, of a pretty bright complexion, aged about 30 years, a planter, and is registered under the foregoing description on this 5th day of September 1798.
And Benjamin Banks was born around the year 1765, almost a decade before the outbreak of the American Revolution. We have never found a black family tree of free Negroes as long as yours.
Wow.
Did you know that there were free colored people in Virginia that far back in our nation's history?
No.
And that you could be descended from them?
It's crazy.
You come from a long line of free Negroes.
The nation's first federal census, taken in 1790, listed almost 60,000 free Negroes living in the United States. Although slavery had been well established in the colonies, the Revolutionary era was full of promise for African Americans. Our fledgling nation was forced to grapple with the question whether its own fight for freedom could ignore the rights of an entire group of people simply because of the color of their skin. And African Americans were by no means mere bystanders in this battle for liberty. I was shocked when I was first shown pension records that proved one of my own ancestors, John Redmond, enlisted in the Virginia Light Dragoons in 1778. That often overlooked chapter of the birth of our nation brought me here. The 2006 National Conference of the Sons of the American Revolution. And I could think of only one way to pay my respects.
Compatriot Dr. Gates, to you, as a descendant of one of the patriots and heroes of the American Revolution, reaffirm your ancestors' faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic.
I do. Above all else, John was a patriot, a black patriot, an American patriot.
And that is why my family and I are here today to commemorate his life and sacrifice by joining the SAR. All I can say is God bless America. Thank you. The experience made me curious. Why were black men like John Redmond willing to fight for a new nation that seemed to care so very little about their right to be free? I went to meet one of the leading historians of free people of color, Eva Shepard Wolf. Were there many free black men who served in the Continental Army or in the state militias?
Total, throughout the war, there were about 5,000 in the whole United States, black people who were soldiers who helped fight for the freedom of this country.
Could slaves serve in the Revolutionary War?
In some places you could with your master's permission in some of the New England states. And then you would get freedom as a result. Yes.
Oh.
In Virginia you could not legally, but a number of owners said, oh, I don't want to serve. Here's this free Negro who's going in my place. And then at the end of the war, they would try to re-enslave these people whom they'd said were free. And the legislature said, no, you can't do that. They passed a law in 1783 saying, people who served as soldiers in this state and fought for liberty deserve freedom, and the masters who went back on their own solemn promise don't get anything and they get no compensation.
So the cause of patriotism
The cause of patriotism.
trumped the economic interests of slavery.
It did.
The Revolutionary War offered a path to freedom for some former slaves. But from the beginning, African Americans have waged smaller, quieter battles for individual liberty.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, darling. My friend Margaret Cooper has spent many of her 98 years attempting to unravel her ancestors' bold and ingenious plan for her own emancipation in the waning years of the American Revolution. Margaret's great-great-great-grandmother, a woman named Susanna Speed, was a slave in Virginia. In 1782, she sued her master for her own freedom. Now, Margaret, these are the crucial documents that gave us the most valuable revelations about Susanna's story. Would you please walk us through them? Can you read that?
On the complaint of Susan Speed, setting forth that the said William doth detain and hold her, and depriveth her of her freedom, which she hath a right to. Therefore it is ordered that the sheriff do summon the said William Rolette to appear at the next court to answer the said complaint. A month later, for reasons not specified in these documents, the court granted Susanna her freedom. It is ordered that the said Susanna be henceforth released from all bondage and servitude to the said William, and that she, together with her said children, be forever henceforth free. She won. 1 month. Now, Margaret, what was your reaction when you discovered these documents? This is incredible. I flipped. I flipped. I thought first, she was the bravest woman I know to go to Halifax County in the courthouse. I could just see all those tobacco-hugging kids sitting around the courthouse. And to have the nerve to go in and protest and then to win. But it was absolutely astounding. How in the world could a female slave bring such a case against her master to court?
It was always legal for people who were held in bondage to sue for freedom.
Really?
Yes, because you can't think that you have any kind of decent legal system if you don't give people the chance to prove that they're free.
Susanna had won a remarkable legal battle, but as we dug deeper, we found that her victory presented her with difficult new choices. Court records from 1782 tell us that Susanna, upon gaining her freedom, made a surprising decision to consign her children into indentured servitude.
The said Susanna Speed has put out and bound to the said William Scott, her son Samuel Speed, until he shall attain the age of 21 years.
Indentured servitude was another type of bound labor. It only lasted for a specified period of time, but it was just a step removed from slavery. Given the ever-present danger of re-enslavement, however, it made sense that Susanna and other free people of color would willingly curtail their own children's freedom in order to protect them.
If they had gone to court, this document existed which would have proved that they were free, because only free people could be indentured.
Oh, they did. This was done then.
It was common.
I often wondered about that.
Some free Negroes, like John Legend's ancestors, went further and purchased their relatives outright as slaves, as part of a plan to keep them safe. Examining Wanda's family tree, we found evidence that her ancestors may have pursued just such a strategy.
These are the personal property tax lists from Surrey County in 1788 and 1789. Now, each entry lists the full name of the free white or black taxpayer, followed by the first names of any slaves they owned.
Wait a minute. Huh?
Each entry lists the full name of the free white or black taxpayer,
Yeah.
followed by the names of any slaves that they owned.
No, no, no. This is where it goes horribly wrong. Oh, God. Don't tell. Oh, Skip, please.
Could you see? Could you see what's written under his name?
John Banks, Tab.
Mm-hmm. And under here?
John Banks, Fanny.
Fanny and Tab. Are you surprised to see that your free black ancestor owned slaves?
What the hell? They were just trying to fit in. That's all. They were like, come on, honey. Everybody else has them. That's how we fit in. Oh, this is awful. Oh, poor Tab, poor Fanny. Oh, gosh. Oh, I just hope, Fanny and Tab's family don't trace their roots and come and whoop my ass.
Reparations.
Yeah, right.
You owe us back wages, compound interest.
This is crazy.
Had Wanda's free black ancestors become so invested in the slave society in which they lived that they too exploited other black people for profit? Or could they have been using slavery to protect their own family members from the possible brutality of white slave owners? The surviving evidence doesn't tell us for sure why Wanda's ancestors owned slaves. There was another mystery, however, that we needed to solve. Given how long Wanda's ancestors had been free, we wondered how they had escaped slavery in the first place. We worked our way up Wanda's family tree, starting with her fifth great-grandfather, Benjamin Banks. We found free papers and census records that, to our astonishment, added generation after generation of free people of color, all the way back to Wanda's eighth great-grandmother, a woman named Mary Banks. Mary was born in Virginia in 1683, a century before the end of the American Revolution.
How do you think they got their freedom in Virginia, which was the biggest slave state at that time?
It must have had some dirt on somebody.
I met up with genealogist Johnny Cerny to see if she could discover any clues that would tell us about the legal basis for Mary's freedom.
Johnny, as you've researched free Negroes, what have you found are the most common ways for them to gain their freedom?
Free persons of color are freed most often by their previous owners. People leave a will stating it, on my death, I want these certain slaves freed.
But Johnny couldn't find any evidence that Mary had been freed in an owner's will. She explained, however, that there was another way for an African to become free.
If the mother was free, the child was free. If the mother was a slave, the child was a slave. And it stayed that way.
So if you were one of the few black people who had a white mother in the colonial period, then you were automatically free.
True.
Based on this hunch, Johnny went back to the records. And then she made a discovery that finally cracked the case. She uncovered court records from 1683, documenting the conviction of a white indentured woman for fornication with a black male slave. And that indentured woman's name was Elizabeth Banks. She is Wanda's 9th great-grandmother.
Elizabeth Banks, servant to Major James Goodwin, being presented for fornication and bastardy with a Negro slave. Ordered that the sheriff take her into his custody and give her 39 lashes on the bare back well laid on, and that she serves her said master according to act.
Elizabeth Banks is your 9th great-grandmother. She was a white servant, probably an indentured servant, who had an out-of-wedlock child with a Negro slave. We know she's white, and we know her name, Elizabeth Banks.
Oh, my goodness.
In the early colonial era, the line between indentured white servants and black slaves could be quite porous. At a time when slavery was just getting underway, not all slaves had yet been isolated on large plantations. The proximity of black slaves and white indentured servants meant that it was possible for black males and white females to have sexual relations.
White servants outnumbered black slaves at this period in Virginia. It was just shifting in the 1680s. It was a period of more racial flexibility. It was a period when the differences were more between the haves and the have-nots than between white and black.
This was the world in which Wanda's anonymous African ancestor developed a relationship with Elizabeth, an indentured white servant.
And she had a baby. So it was probably when the baby was born, it was like, hey, it's a black baby.
You got it. And what happened to the mixed-race child, your 8th great-grandmother, Mary Banks, that Elizabeth bore from this Negro slave? The child follows the condition of the mother, not of the father. And because of this quirk in the law, your 8th great-grandmother was free.
Wow.
And stayed free all the way between Elizabeth Banks and Wanda Sykes, born in 1964. Legacy
Thanks
in
to
their
her,
family.
look at this. Look at this legacy. Look at this. I'm speechless. It's
Your 9th great-grandmother, Elizabeth Banks, in effect, by her choice of partner, guaranteed your family's freedom. I'm not sure that was on her mind the night she slept with this brother.
Yeah, Elizabeth, the white woman, now she's just scorned. She's just like you
Trailer
said,
trash.
trailer trash.
Trailer trash.
She probably was the first white trash. She probably was.
And what would you ask Elizabeth? Your white 9th great-grandmother.
I sat down and talked to her as me, Wanda Sykes, today. I would ask her if, how we do. And I'd like to meet my white wife.
For Wanda, John, and Margaret, the discovery of these free ancestors was quite a revelation. But these surprising stories only accounted for a fraction of the branches on their family trees. Most of their other ancestral lines consist of relatives who were slaves until the end of the Civil War, just like the other 90% of the African American people. Nameless and propertyless, defined as property themselves, it's extremely difficult to learn much about the origins of these enslaved ancestors. But today there's another way to begin to piece together our roots, all the way back to Africa, and it's encoded in our DNA. Geneticists can take advantage of the fact that human beings inherit identical copies of 2 DNA segments. Fathers pass on exact copies of their Y DNA to each of their sons, and mothers pass on replicas of their mitochondrial DNA to all of their children. So if an African American shares either of these DNA segments with a member of a present-day ethnic group in Africa, then it's likely that they share a common ancestor. The DNA testing company AfricanAncestry.com has collected DNA samples from the ethnic groups throughout West and Central Africa that were most heavily raided during the slave trade. So we ran samples from our African American guests through their database. The results suggest that John Legend's mother's line leads to the Mende people in Sierra Leone, and his father's line leads to the Fula people in Guinea-Bissau, while Wanda's mother's line leads back to several groups, including the Tikar and Fulani people of Cameroon. For Margaret Cooper, we were able to give her her first glimpse into where her maternal ancestors originated in Africa.
Sierra Leone. I was looking for my roots, and here I have them.
You know, you feel your history. You know where you're from, and you can think about what they probably went through, and you get the years, and you know where they were and what your family was doing.
For John Legend, this journey has helped him discover the long-forgotten history of his family's courageous fight for freedom.
It makes me proud that I had ancestors that had a sense of dignity. When given the opportunity to be free, they not only became free, but also fought for that freedom and didn't take no for an answer. It shows a certain level of tenacity and a certain, resolve and power that it makes me proud to know that I had ancestors that had that.
Start the show, start the show, please start the show.
We've come to the end of the family sagas of John Legend and Wanda Sykes. Join me next week for another journey into the lost past.
তেল ছাড়া রান্না আপনারা সবাই আমাদের আগের সিজনস দেখেছেন। ইটস এ ভেরি কমন এপিসোড যেটা আমরা করি। এটাকে আপনাদের জন্য আরেকটু ডিফিকাল্ট করতে চাই আমি। আজকে তেল ছাড়া রান্নাতে বেকিংও থাকবে না। ওভেনের ইউসেজ এই চ্যালেঞ্জের জন্য কমপ্লিটলি নো। তেল ছাড়া রান্না, নো ওভেন।
তো সো তোমরা এখন নিজেরাই ভেবে বের করবে কোন কুকিং মেথডে তোমরা যাবে, যেখানে তেল ছাড়া তোমরা একটা সুস্বাদু খাবার আমাদেরকে চমৎকারভাবে প্লেটিং করে দেখাতে পারবে।
কিন্তু গত পর্বে যিনি টপার হয়েছেন তিনি ব্ল্যাক স্কার্পের সুবাদে কি কি সুবিধা নিতে পারেন?
আজকে দিবা আপনার জন্য ব্ল্যাক স্কার্ফের পাওয়ার দুটো থাকবে। নাম্বার 1, you will be the only person যে আজকে ওভেন ইউজ করতে পারবে। সো বেকিং অর ওভেন রিলেটেড কাজ আপনি করতে পারবেন। অ্যান্ড দ্য সেকেন্ড ওয়ান উড বি রাঁধুনি স্টোর থেকে আপনি যে কোনো সময় যে কোনো কিছু নিয়ে আসতে পারবেন। আনলিমিটেড টাইম রাঁধুনি গ্রোসারি স্টোরে। আপনি ডিসিশনটা আমাকে এখনই জানাবেন, অ্যান্ড ডিসিশনটা দেওয়ার পরে স্কার্ফটা আমাকে দিয়ে যাবেন।
আমি অপশন 1 চুজ করব।
আপনি আজকে অপশন 1, which means আপনি ওভেন ইউজ করবেন। গুড ডিসিশন। আপনি এসে আপনার স্কার্ফটা দিয়ে যাবেন আমাকে। থ্যাংক ইউ, গুড লাক।
থ্যাংক ইউ দিবা। জাজেস, সময় নিয়ে আজকে কি বলার আছে?
যে সময়টা থাকে রাঁধুনি স্টোরের জন্য 15 মিনিট দেয়া হচ্ছে এবং রান্নার জন্য দেয়া হচ্ছে টোটাল 1.5 ঘন্টা।
এবং আপনাদের এই তেল ছাড়া রান্নার 2টো আইটেম করতে হবে। জাজেস, আজ কিন্তু আমাদের টপ 10 এর তৃতীয় চ্যালেঞ্জ এবং মহামঞ্চের নবম চ্যালেঞ্জ। আজকে কি কোনো এলিমিনেশন থাকছে?
আমাদের এই টপ 10 পার্টিসিপেন্টস যারা আছেন তারা যতটা সময় আমরা চাই যে আমাদের সাথে থাকুক, তারা তাদের বেস্টটা আমাদেরকে দেখ, সেটাই আমরা দেখতে চাই। সো আজকে কোনো এলিমিনেশন থাকছে না।
বিজ্ঞ বিচারক, এবারে আপনারা আপনাদের আসনে গিয়ে বসুন। থ্যাংক ইউ। মেন্টরস, আপনারাও বসবেন। টপ 10 পার্টিসিপেন্টস, আপনাদের জন্য রাধুনী স্টোরের সময় শুরু হচ্ছে এখন। Well done, participants.
নাগা পেরি পেরি চিকেন, হাটহাজারি কিমা পরোটা, শিমলা মরিচ দিয়ে একটা স্টাফ ডিলেট। এত ঝাল পাকোড়া হিসাবে দিলে, কারণ যেহেতু তুমি কোটিং করে রেখেছো, ভিতরে কি আছে সেটা তো কেউ দেখছে না।
রাজশাহীর প্রতিযোগী মৌসুমী কবির, আপনার রেসিপি নিয়ে চলে আসুন।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম।
হাটহাজারি শরবত, স্টাফ শিমলা আর বোম্বাই পাকোড়া। এই বোম্বাই মরিচের পাকোড়া আমার মনে হয় এটাকে তোমার ব্যালেন্স করা উচিত ছিল। এত ঝাল পাকোড়া হিসাবে দিলে, কারণ যেহেতু তুমি কোটিং করে রেখেছো, ভিতরে কি আছে সেটা তো কেউ দেখছে না। এইটা অনেক বেশি ঝাল হয়েছে, এইটা ঠিক আছে। শিমলা মরিচ যেটা করেছো, তবে তোমার এইটা আমি যত ঝাল মনে করেছিলাম, এটা কিন্তু অত ঝাল না।
পুরোটা ব্লেন্ড করে দেওয়া
এটা খেতে খুবই ভালো হয়েছে। এইটা যদি এরকম ব্লেন্ড করতে তাহলে 10 on 10 পেতে। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
ড্রিঙ্কটা আপনি যেটা বানিয়েছেন, হাটহাজারি শরবত, খেতে এমনি মজা, বাট এটাতে আমার মনে হয়েছে যে হাটহাজারি ফ্লেভারটা সিগনিফিকেন্টলি বোঝা যায় না। আগেন এটা যদি না বলেন তাহলে বোঝার কোনো ওয়ে নাই। প্লেটিংয়ে একটা মরিচ অথবা মরিচের কোনো এলিমেন্ট দিয়ে দিতে পারতেন, তাহলেই ড্রিঙ্কটা টেস্ট না থাকলেও বোঝা যেত যেটা হাটহাজারি মরিচের ড্রিঙ্ক। নাম্বার 2, বোম্বাই মরিচ পাকোড়া। আইডিয়া কনসেপ্টটা ভালো ছিল, এটাকে ভিনেগারে কিছুক্ষণ রেখে দিলে একটু ঝালটা কমে আসতো, বাট এটা খাওয়া যাচ্ছে না, and এটা খাওয়া পসিবল না। কামিং টু দ্য শিমলা মরিচ, স্টাফিংটা অনেক মজা ছিল, প্লেটিংও ভালো ছিল দেখতে, অ্যান্ড প্রেজেন্টেশন এভরিথিং এটা ভালো লেগেছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
আপনার কস্টিং আজকে ঠিক আছে।
দুটো স্টার ডিশ হচ্ছে ড্রিঙ্কটা আর শিমলা মির্চের যেটা স্টাফিং দিয়ে করেছেন এটা। ড্রিঙ্কসটার মধ্যে তেঁতুলটা দিয়ে যেহেতু আপনি ব্লেন্ড করেছেন, তাই তেঁতুল, টক, ঝাল, মিষ্টির একটা ফ্লেভার আসছে। শিমলা মরিচের পুরো এটাই আমি শেষ করেছি স্টাফিংটা। মরিচ দিয়ে খেলে আরও বেশি ভালো লাগছে। সুন্দর করেছেন, প্রেজেন্টেশন সুন্দর, নাইস ট্রাই। থ্যাংক ইউ। থ্যাংক ইউ। থ্যাংক ইউ মৌসুমী কবির। এবারে নারায়ণগঞ্জের প্রতিযোগী নিশাত, আপনার ফুড নিয়ে চলে আসুন।
নাগা পেরি পেরি চিকেন, হাটহাজারি কিমা পরোটা,
শিমলা মরিচ দিয়ে একটা স্টাফ ডিলেট।
পেরি পেরি নাগা কনসেপ্টটা অ্যামেজিং ছিল। কনসেপ্টটা আই থিঙ্ক নাগা মরিচের বেস্ট ইউসেজ এটাতে করা হয়েছে, বাট সেখানে অন্যান্য সিজনিংটা একটু কম হয়ে গেছে, স্পেশালি লবণের পরিমাণটা আরেকটু বাড়াতে হতো। সসটা মজা, ঝালের পরিমাণ ঠিক আছে। সেম গোজ ফর হাটহাজারি পরোটা, এটারও কনসেপ্টটা খুবই ভালো ছিল। টেস্ট ওয়াইজ আই ফেল্ট ভিতরে আপনি কিমা স্টাফিং করেছেন, রাইট? হ্যাঁ, ওটার ফ্লেভারটা আরও বাড়ানো দরকার ছিল, পরিমাণটাও আরেকটু বাড়ানো দরকার ছিল, বাট হাটহাজারির ফ্লেভার্স অ্যান্ড টেস্ট পরোটা থেকে বোঝা যায়। শিমলা ডিলাইট, রাইট? ভিতরে স্টাফিংটা অনেক মজা। শিমলা মরিচ যে একটু তিতা ভাবটা থাকে ওটাকে কমপ্লিটলি কভার আপ করে খুবই ভালো একটা টেস্ট ক্রিয়েট করে দ্য খেজুর স্টাফিং। সো অল থ্রি ডিশেস আমার অনেক ভালো লেগেছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
গুড জব।
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার। আমার কাছে খেতে ভালো লেগেছে, আর পেরি পেরি সস দিয়ে যখন আমি চিকেনটা খাচ্ছিলাম আমার কাছে তখন আর লবণ যে খুব বেশি কম সেটা লাগছিল না, বিকজ আমি সসটাকে মিক্স করেই খাচ্ছিলাম। আলাদা খেলে লবণ কম লাগে। আর এই ডিশটা তো খুবই ভালো লেগেছে আমার।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
আপনার 3টা ডিশের প্রেজেন্টেশন ব্যালেন্স, ঝালের ব্যালেন্স বলবো, যেহেতু একটাতে আর কোনো ঝাল নেই, একটাতে পুরোটাই আপনি ডেজার্ট করেছেন, শিমলা মির্চের ডেজার্ট। আপনিও প্রথম করেছেন, আমিও প্রথম খেয়েছি শিমলা মরিচের ডেজার্ট। এটার স্টাফিংটা এত মজা কি বলবো। আর পেরি পেরি চিকেন অ্যান্ড পরাঠা যেটা করেছেন খুবই ভালো, দারুণ। থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম। থ্যাংক ইউ।
কস্টিং ঠিক আছে?
থ্যাংক ইউ ফার্স্ট।
থ্যাংক ইউ নিশাত। গত পর্বের সবচেয়ে লো স্কোর যারা পেয়েছেন সেজুতে এবং তামান্নার কাছে, কি মনে হয় আজকের যে দুটো রেসিপি আপনারা কি আপনাদের লো স্কোর থেকে হাই স্কোরে যেতে পারবেন?
এফোর্ট তো এটার জন্যই দেওয়া হবে।
যেই গ্রুপ লোয়েস্ট স্কোর থাকবে আজকে তারা এই মঞ্চ থেকে আজকে বিদায় নেবে। আমাদের আজকে চ্যালেঞ্জের রেসিপি জানার জন্য আমরা এলইডি স্ক্রিনে চোখ রাখি।
সবাই বেশ আলোচনা শুরু করে দিয়েছে দেখলাম। এই রেসিপি দুটো দেখার পর কার কি রিয়াকশন? কারো কোনো রিয়াকশন নেই? ইজি পিজি টাস্ক, রাইট? কেউ কিছু বলতে চান?
দুইটা রেসিপি যে আমরা দেখছি, দুইটা রেসিপি সম্পর্কে মানে দেখার পরে আসলে ভয়ও কাজ করতেছে, পাশাপাশি কনফিডেন্সও আছে। কনফিডেন্স হচ্ছে এই কারণে যে দুইটা রেসিপি সম্পর্কে আমি মনে করি যে সবার মধ্যেই আইডিয়া আছে, দুইটা রেসিপি সম্পর্কে আইডিয়া আছে। আর ভয় কাজ করতেছে এটা যে যেহেতু সবারই আইডিয়া আছে, ধারণা আছে, কারটা কত বেশি ভালো হবে।
এটাই তো চ্যালেঞ্জ, আজকের চ্যালেঞ্জ কারটা কত বেশি ভালো হবে। এবং এখানে দুটো রেসিপি দেখছেন, আপনাদের সবাইকে এই দুটো রেসিপি করতে হবে। এবার আমরা যাব গত পর্বের সবচেয়ে লো স্কোর যারা পেয়েছেন সেজুতে এবং তামান্নার কাছে, কি মনে হয় আজকের যে দুটো রেসিপি আপনারা কি আপনাদের লো স্কোর থেকে হাই স্কোরে যেতে পারবেন?
এফোর্ট তো এটার জন্যই দেওয়া হবে। উই উইল ট্রাই আওয়ার লেভেল বেস্ট অর মোর দেন দ্যাট। সো আমরা যেন কালকে যে স্কোরটা করেছি ওইটার থেকে যেন বাউন্স ব্যাক করতে পারি। আজকে ওই মেন্টালিটি সেট করে এসেছি যে উই হ্যাভ টু গিভ আওয়ার লেভেল বেস্ট অ্যান্ড মোর।
আই হোপ গাইস ইউ লার্ন ওয়েল, যেটা শেখানো হয়েছিল। অ্যাট লিস্ট ট্রাই ইউর বেস্ট টু প্রুভ ইট দ্যাট হাউ মাচ ইউ লার্ন। সেজন্য সবাইকে অশেষ গুড লাক জানাচ্ছি যে শো ইউর বেস্ট, ডু ইউর বেস্ট। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
পার্টিসিপেন্টস, আজকে তোমাদের রান্নার জন্য সময় থাকবে 2 আওয়ার্স, আর আমাদের রাঁধুনি গ্রোসারি স্টোরে যাওয়ার জন্য থাকছে 20 মিনিটস।
এর সাথে আমি আপনাদেরকে এটাও রিমাইন্ড করে দিতে চাই যে আজকের এপিসোডের শেষে বটম 2 will go home. আজকে আমাদের এলিমিনেশন এপিসোড, যেই গ্রুপ লোয়েস্ট স্কোর থাকবে আজকে তারা এই মঞ্চ থেকে আজকে বিদায় নেবে। Shejati Tamanna, it's going to be a tough fight for you. Good luck, everyone.
অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। এবারে আমার বিজ্ঞ বিচারকদের অনুরোধ করছি আসনে গিয়ে বসার জন্য। থ্যাংক ইউ। মেন্টরস, আপনারাও বসবেন। পার্টিসিপেন্টস, আজকে যেহেতু গ্রুপ টাস্ক, তার মানে হচ্ছে আজকে আপনাদের জন্য মেন্টরস টাইম আউট থাকছে না। আর আমাদের বিজ্ঞ বিচারকেরা বলে দিয়েছেন রাধুনী স্টোরের জন্য আপনারা সময় পাচ্ছেন 20 মিনিটস, এবং সেই সময় শুরু হচ্ছে এখন। দেখতে এত সুন্দর লাগছে, খেতেও মজা, বাট সামহাও গুঁড়ো দুধের স্মেলটা রয়ে গেছে।
It has become আলু ভর্তা। ক্যারট পিউরেতে ক্যারটের কোনো টেস্ট নাই, এর টেস্ট অফ চিলি, জাস্ট অনেক ঝাল।
জালি কাবাবের ভেতরে অনেক বেশি কাঁচামরিচের একটা ফ্লেভার, ঝাল আছে।
কোনোভাবেই মানাচ্ছে না এটা। ইউ হ্যাড চিকেন ব্রেস্ট, রাইট? সব কিছু করতে হবে, স্টার্টিং ফ্রম মেনটেনিং ইউর হাইজিন টু ইউ লেভেল আপিং ইউর গেম।
এবারে রাজশাহীর প্রতিযোগী লীনা, যার বাস্কেট বদল হয়েছিল নারায়ণগঞ্জের নিশাতের সঙ্গে। যদিও আজ তারা মুখোমুখি দাঁড়িয়েছে মাঝের কিচেন স্টেশনে, দেখা যাক লীনা কতটা ভালো রেঁধেছে। আপনার ফুড নিয়ে চলে আসুন।
আমি বানিয়েছি ট্যাঙ্গি লেমন ফিশ উইথ ম্যাশড পটেটো আর সাথে ক্রিম ক্যারামেল, অরেঞ্জ ক্রিম ক্যারামেল।
ক্যারট পিউরেতে চিলি দিয়েছেন?
হ্যাঁ, একটু চিলি দিয়েছি আমি, কারণ একদম মানে আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছিল একটু ঝাল দিলে একটু ভালো লাগতো হয়তো, কারণ পেপার ছাড়া কোনো কিছুর স্পাইসনেসটা ছিল না, তবে হোয়াইট পেপার ছিল।
ডেজার্টটা আমি লাস্টে খেয়েছি, দেখতে এত সুন্দর লাগছে, খেতেও মজা, বাট সামহাও গুঁড়ো দুধের স্মেলটা রয়ে গেছে। ম্যাশ পটেটো প্রপারলি ম্যাশ হয় নাই, সো দানা দানা রয়ে গেছে। ক্রিম, বাটার, ফ্লেভার কিছুই নাই, জাস্ট একটা আলু ভর্তা হয়েছে। অ্যান্ড ফিশের ফ্লেভারটা খেতে ভালো লাগেনি।
আসলে পূর্ণিমা ম্যামের সাথে আমি একদম একমত। ফিশটা পুরো ফিশি একটা ফ্লেভার রয়ে গেছে, ওটা একটু লেবু দিয়ে লবণ দিয়ে মেখে রেখে তারপরে করলে ওর ফ্লেভারটা চলে যেত। আর ডেজার্ট যেটা, এটা অরেঞ্জটা না দিলেই বরঞ্চ ভালো লাগতো খেতে। তো এইখানে একটা বড় মিস্টেক আছে।
আমি আপনাকে যা বলতাম ওটা অলরেডি পূর্ণিমা ম্যাম আপনাকে বলে দিয়েছে। এটা দেখে যতটা খেতে ইচ্ছে করেছিল, খাওয়ার সাথে সাথে জাস্ট অ্যাপেটাইট চলে যায়। I can't find what's wrong with it. It's not tasty. A mashed potato, it has become aloo bharta. Carrot puree, carroter kono taste nai. It taste of chili. It's just onek jhal. And machta is very flavorless. Costing it technically ঠিক আছে, but I feel যে this is overpriced. And last day পুরো জিনিসটা আপনি একসাথে আমাকে দেননি, যে এটা অ্যাড করে একটা প্ল্যাটার বা একটা প্লেটের দাম কী হবে? ঠিক আছে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
এবারে নারায়ণগঞ্জের নিশাত, যার বাস্কেট বদল হয়েছিল লিনার সঙ্গে। দেখি লিনার ইনগ্রিডিয়েন্টস দিয়ে নিশাত কতটা ভালো রেঁধেছেন। আপনার ফুড নিয়ে চলে আসুন। হ্যালো
শেফ, আমি বানিয়েছি জালি কাবাব আর এখানে করেছি ক্যারট ক্রাস্ট ফিস্ট উইথ অরেঞ্জ সস আর সটেড ভেজিটেবল, আর কোরাল দিয়েছি আমি হচ্ছে গার্নিশিংয়ে।
নিশাত, আমি প্রথমে ফিশটা ট্রাই করছিলাম, আমার কাছে এত স্ট্রং ফিশের স্মেলটা ছিল, এটা আসলে একটু লেমন দিয়ে লেমন সস করে এটাকে চাইলে একটা সুন্দর টেস্ট নিয়ে আসা যেতে। জালি কাবাবটার মধ্যে ওই যে মরিচের যেটা, সেটা একদম গলায় লাগছিল, তো অন্য একজনের বাস্কেট দিয়ে ট্রাই করা হয়েছে। ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
আপনার কাছে মনে হয় চিকেনের অনেক অপশন ছিল, রাইট? চিকেন উইংস ছিল, সো আপনি চিকেন দিয়ে তো করেছেন আপনি একটা জালি কাবাব। জালি কাবাবের ভেতরে অনেক বেশি কাঁচামরিচের একটা ফ্লেভার, ঝাল আছে এবং ভেতরটা অনেক ড্রাই, প্রচুর পরিমাণে কিমা 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 একটা ফিলিং। ফিশের যে সসটা করেছেন আপনি, এই সসটা খাওয়ার মতো না।
এটা দিয়ে শুরু করি। দিস ইজ আ রেপ্লিকা অফ আ ভেরি ক্লাসিক ফ্রেঞ্চ ডিশ, যেটা পটেটো ক্রাস্টেড ফিশ, রাইট? সো এটাকে আপনি আপনার ভার্জন করতে চেয়েছেন, পটেটো ক্রাস্টেড fish with orange sauce. That's a very classic French recipe, which means sauce-টা তো sauce থাকতে হবে. This is not, if you look here, এটার sauce নেই. It has become something পিউরের মতো হয়ে গিয়েছে। আপনার বাস্কেট আজকে এক্সচেঞ্জ হয়ে গিয়েছে। You had option of chicken, right? On one hand, আপনি একটা ক্লাসিক ফ্রেঞ্চ ডিশের রেপ্লিকেশন করছেন। On the other hand, you go for jali kebab. কোনোভাবেই মানাচ্ছে না এটা। You had chicken breast, right? সব কিছু করতে হবে। Starting from maintaining your hygiene to you level upping your game. এটার কস্টিং হয়েছে?
না, একটা কস্টিং হয় না, কারণ আমি পুরো বাস্কেট সহকারে ওকে সব কিছুই দিয়ে দিয়েছিলাম তখন। আর একটা
costing is just half done, right? 2 hours, come on. নিয়ে যান, thank you.
থ্যাংক ইউ নিশাত।
Các bạn nhớ khi tô mình cần nhìn kỹ các mặt Rubik để xem mình đã tô đúng màu chưa nha. Ok, và mình sẽ tô tiếp một ô này nữa nha. Ok, vậy là mình đã dùng xong màu đỏ rồi và tiếp theo thì mình sẽ dùng đến màu hồng nha. Mình sẽ dùng màu hồng để tô những ô tiếp theo.